Chapter 1249. Chuli asked, does cultivating the heavenly heart technique require special qualities? If you don't have any special aptitude, you will definitely die if you cultivate it. Ding Rueja looked at him indifferently and said, you dare to cultivate it? There's no harm in trying, right? Chuli asked. Ding Rueja smiled faintly. That depends on your luck. Once it's not suitable for cultivation, you'll die. There's no way you'll get lucky. Besides, it's not like your injuries will worsen bit by bit. You'll die instantly. Chuli frowned. He didn't expect this Heavenly Heart Sutra to be so vicious. Once one didn't meet the requirements, they would die. Ding Rueja said, if you want to die, I won't stop you. Chuli asked, don't tell me that the Prophecy Pavilion's martial arts have no way to restrain it. Yes, Ding Rueja said indifferently. The heaven-defying art is at Goddess Attraction Mountain. Chuli frowned and remained silent. Ding Rueja said, the disciples of Goddess Attraction Mountain almost never appear, nor do they oppose the Pavilion of Heavenly Secrets. Thus, having them is equivalent to not having them. As long as the Pavilion of Heavenly Secrets does not go overboard, Goddess Attraction Mountain will not interfere. Chuli said, in that case, only Goddess Attraction Mountain can keep the Prophecy Pavilion in check. Yes, Ding Rueja said lightly. From her mind, Chuli knew that the Destiny Pavilion and Goddess Attraction Mountain had a very deep relationship. The key to this relationship was the Stargazing Pavilion. The founder of the Stargazing Pavilion was a woman, and this woman's husband was the founder of Goddess Attraction Mountain. The Pavilion of Divine Mysteries' secret arts originated from the Stargazing Pavilion and were created by its disciples. Since the Immortal Attraction Mountain could restrain the Stargazing Pavilion, it could naturally restrain the Pavilion of Divine Mysteries as well. Chuli shook his head. The relationship between them was very complicated. If he could not see Ding Rueja's mind, it would be very difficult to understand. Chuli remained silent. It seemed that there was no hope of restraining the Prophecy Pavilion. He could only cultivate the secret skills of the Prophecy Pavilion. However, the Heavenly Heart technique was so powerful that it was an extremely risky gamble. He would have to think carefully about whether or not to cultivate it. If he could cultivate the Heavenly Heart Sutra, he felt that there would be endless benefits. At the very least, he would be able to increase the might of the nature restoration manifestation. He might even be able to pry into the mysteries of heaven. Thinking of this, his heart was burning. Ding Rueja said, if you kill me, be careful of the revenge of the Pavilion of Heavenly Mysteries. Their disciples were killed, and they can even find out who the murderer is. Chuli stared at her. Ding Rueja lightly said, this isn't a threat. I'm just telling you lest you regret it in the future. Chuli asked, Senior Ding, do you think I'll show you mercy? No, Ding Rueja said. She knew how strong Chuli's killing intent was. He had to get rid of her, or else she would not stop killing him. Both of them would fight to the death, and only one of them could live. Zhao De would not let go of this opportunity. Chuli asked, Senior Ding, do you have any last words? That's all. Ding Rueja said faintly. I'm leaving first. You'll follow me later. That might not be the case. Chuli smiled. I have a request, Ding Rueja said. Chuli said, speak. Ding Rueja said, I want to be buried with Shi Xiao. Chuli was surprised. Your senior brother? My senior brother died a long time ago, but his grave is still there in that valley. I'll have to trouble you to bury me in his grave, Ding Rueja said lightly. Chuli pondered for a moment and finally nodded slowly. All right. He read Ding Rueja's thoughts. Indeed, there were no traps or ambushes. Instead, she was eager to be buried together with her senior brother. This way, it would be easier to find him in the realm beyond heavens. Otherwise, they would be too far apart. Chuli once again appeared in the ravine that he had been to before. He was holding Ding Rueja's corpse in his hand. This time, he did not mercilessly destroy the flower and behead Ding Rueja. This was because Ding Rueja's lifespan had come to an end. Even if he had a spirit medicine like the spirit blessing pill, he would not be able to save her. In a situation where her lifespan had come to an end, the spirit blessing pill would be ineffective. Ding Rueja was dead, and no one could save her. Hence, he did not have to be merciless and let her be buried together with his senior brother. The formation in the ravine was still there, and it continued to operate. He quickly entered the ravine and buried Ding Rwagia. Finally, he came to a wooden house and found a box under a bamboo bed. The small box looked like it was used to store jewelry. It looked very ordinary, and the purple paint gave off a dark glow. He opened it to take a look. There were only 3 yellowing silk books in the box. He took them out and flipped through them. One of them had the words Heavenly Heart Technique written on it, and it was overflowing with ancient meaning. The other one was a Taoist scripture with no heart technique, and the last one was a peering heaven technique. Chu Li reached out to take it and flipped through it carefully. He nodded in satisfaction. Other than the Taoist scripture, the other 2 books were impressive secret skills. Needless to say, the Heavenly Heart Technique was the basic heart technique of the Divine Prophecy Pavilion. The other book, the Peering Heaven Technique, was even more amazing. It was a secret skill that could see through destiny. He was overjoyed. If he could cultivate both of them, he would not be inferior to the disciples of the Divine Prophecy Pavilion. He disappeared in a flash and appeared in the imperial residence of King Yin. In his own courtyard, Chu Li sat in the pagoda and looked at the 3 secret manuals on the stone table thoughtfully. He was feeling the aura of the 3 secret manuals and using his intuition to determine their degree of danger. He wanted to see if he could cultivate them. The intuition of a grandmaster was a very mysterious power. It could predict danger. He could not tell where this power came from, but he firmly believed that if there was danger in cultivating the secret skills of the Divine Prophecy Pavilion, he should be able to sense it. It was better not to cultivate it. He reached out and pressed on the secret manual of the Heavenly Heart Technique. His mind turned, and he wanted to cultivate it. A vague intuition appeared in his heart, but it did not allow him to touch this secret manual. Chu Li frowned. If that was the case, he was really not suitable to cultivate the Heavenly Heart Technique. He was not fated with it. He reached out and pressed on the other Peering Heaven Technique. As soon as the thought of cultivating it appeared, a surge of warnings appeared in his heart, telling him that he must not cultivate it. Chu Li looked at this Peering Heaven Technique thoughtfully. It seemed that he was not fated with this Peering Heaven Technique, so he could not cultivate it. He believed in his intuition. If it said that he could not cultivate it and should stay far away, then he would not cultivate it and stay far away. Otherwise, he would be digging his own grave. He stuffed the Peering Heaven Technique directly into his chest and looked at the Heavenly Heart Technique on the table. After thinking for a while, his intuition only told him that there was danger, but it was not as strong as the Peering Heaven Technique. What did this mean? Did it mean that cultivating it would only be dangerous, but not necessarily fatal? However, danger was also troublesome. It seemed that he was not suitable to cultivate it. Should he cultivate it or not? He stood up and paced with his hands behind his back. His mind was spinning, weighing the pros and cons. He could not decide for a moment. The sound of footsteps was heard. Sio sure came in. Her white tunic fluttered in the wind. She did not have a white veil on her face, revealing her beautiful face. What are you thinking about? She looked at Chu Li curiously. She came to the pagoda, and as soon as she sat down, she saw the Heavenly Heart Technique on the stone table. She took it and flipped through it. She raised her head in surprise. Where did you get this? I picked it up, Chu Li said. Sio sure was surprised. Isn't this the Divine Intelligence Pavilion's Heavenly Heart Technique? Yes, Chu Li said. Sio sure exclaimed. I didn't expect to finally encounter it. Chu Li shook his head and sighed. Too bad I can't cultivate it. P.S. Update complete. Recommended Mao Su's Sunny Days Again. A very good female lead novel. Chapter 1250. Sio sure smiled. Why can't I cultivate it? She flipped open the Heavenly Heart Technique and flipped through it quickly. She put it back on the table and said, The Divine Design Pavilion's martial arts have a high requirement for talent. You don't meet the requirements, so you can't cultivate it, right? Chu Li nodded. Sio sure looked at the Heavenly Heart Technique on the table thoughtfully and said casually, Then aren't you wasting your efforts? She knew how rare the Heavenly Heart Technique was. It was the secret skill of the Divine Design Pavilion. The people in the Divine Design Pavilion were smarter than monkeys. There were only advantages and no disadvantages. He must have spent a lot of effort to get the Heavenly Heart technique. CEO Sure could imagine how depressed Chu Li would be if he couldn't cultivate the secret skill that he painstakingly obtained. She didn't sympathize with him. Instead, she found it interesting. She had seen too much of Chu Li's confidence and ease. It was especially interesting to see him frowning. Chu Li said snappily, "What a waste of effort." CEO Sure said, "This Heavenly Heart technique doesn't seem that difficult, right?" She felt that it was easy after reading it, so she tried to cultivate it. Instantly, her mind was clear. She had been cultivating the spirit crane breathing technique. Unknowingly, she had a trace of inner energy. This inner energy was different from normal inner energy. It was in between inner energy and nourishing inner energy. It was extremely beneficial to the body. She usually didn't care about it, since she didn't cultivate martial arts. She only persisted in the breathing technique. After looking at the mental cultivation method of the Heavenly Heart Art, she couldn't help but practice according to the Heavenly Heart Art once. It was extremely smooth, and she didn't feel the slightest bit of strain. After practicing it once, she felt extremely comfortable, as if she had just woken up from a good sleep. Her spirit was high, her mind was clear, and her thoughts were faster than usual. It was too wonderful for words. She couldn't help but exclaim, "Good heart technique." Chu Li frowned and looked at her. "Don't tell me you learned it?" Although she had the titanium Sarira, he could still vaguely read her mind. It was just that it wasn't that clear. He could vaguely see that her eyes were brighter than before. It was different from usual. "I practiced it once. It was very interesting," CEO Sure smiled. "Could it be that my talent is just right to cultivate this?" Chu Li was shocked and quickly said, "Don't cultivate it blindly. This Heavenly Heart technique is very dangerous. Don't make a fuss out of nothing." CEO Sure said disapprovingly, "Could it be that it can kill someone?" "That's right." Chu Li scoffed. "If your aptitude doesn't match, you'll definitely die if you practice it." Xiao Sure frowned at him, then looked at the Heavenly Heart technique on the table. She shook her head and smiled. "Does the Divine Mystery Pavilion's martial arts have such a magical effect? This isn't a joke. Don't mess around." Chu Li frowned. Seeing that CEO Sure did not seem to care at all, he felt a headache coming on. CEO Sure was indifferent to life and death. She did not have many scruples when she did things. The more he said it was dangerous, the more she wanted to try it out. But if he said it was not serious, she would still try it out. Xiao Sure said, "It's so dangerous. All the more reason for me to practice." Chu Li said snappily, "Just calm down for a bit." CEO Sure smiled and said, "Chu Li, you're now the pillar of the House of High Dukes, the pillar of the sea. If anything were to happen to you, it would be disastrous. I don't really care. What's the harm in trying?" Chu Li rubbed between his eyebrows and shook his head helplessly. CEO Sure said, "Don't worry. My instincts are very accurate. Cultivating this won't be a problem." Chu Li knew that it was useless to object. Even if he objected, she would still practice it. Instead of that, he might as well practice it in front of him. So he frowned and said, "Just try it. Don't force yourself. I'm not tired of living and looking for death." CEO Sure rolled her eyes at him. Chu Li nodded helplessly. "All right then, I'll watch from the side. You can practice it now." CEO Sure closed her eyes and began to cultivate. The clear energy circulated one cycle after another in her body, flowing smoothly. After one cycle, her mind became clearer. After more than 10 cycles, she felt light and her mind was extremely fast. It was as if nothing in the world could be hidden from her. One could know the autumn by looking at a leaf. One could know the world by looking at a drop of water. It was as if the mysteries of heaven and earth could be understood with just a thought. It was as if the world was within her thoughts. The four corners of heaven and earth, since the beginning of time, everything was in her heart. She was the master of the universe, the god of heaven and earth. Chu Li saw that she was in a trance, but her eyes were clear and bright, so he coughed softly. This sound was imbued with the heart technique of Mahavairocana's immobility scripture. It was like the evening drum and morning bell. It shook Co sure awake and pulled her down from the faraway void. It was like a blow to her head. She suddenly woke up and turned to look at Chu. Chu hurriedly asked, "How is it?" Co sure felt as if her soul had left her body. She could not help but have wild thoughts. Chuli's shout directly knocked her back to her original position, and she regained her consciousness. She could not help but break out in a cold sweat. If it was not for that shout, she would have gone crazy. Co sure nodded lightly. "It's a little dangerous." Chuli looked at her thoughtfully. After a while, he could no longer see through Co sure's thoughts. It was obvious that the Heaven Heart technique was amazing. She had actually learned the basics in just a short while. It seemed like the most suitable person to cultivate this was not him, but Co sure. Chuli said, "How about this? You continue to cultivate, and I'll protect you. Then you have to watch closely. The more I cultivate, the more I feel like I'm omnipotent." Co sure said, "I almost believed you." Chuli nodded and said, "I will wake you up in time." Co sure's body was clear, and her mind was exceptionally sharp. Cultivating this Heaven Heart technique was dangerous, but the benefits were great. Hence, she continued to cultivate. The Heaven Heart technique circulated again and again. Chuli was always able to wake her up when she had wild thoughts. She felt like she was omnipotent and the master of the world. He would shout and shake her back to reality. Once her mind was clear, she continued to cultivate. The two of them cultivated for the whole night. The next morning, Co sure did not feel sleepy at all. She looked at the golden sun shining on her body. She shook her head and smiled. "I didn't sleep for the whole night, and I'm still full of energy. This Heaven Heart technique is really not bad. I cultivated it correctly." Chu said, "When you cultivate, you must have me by your side. Don't cultivate by yourself." All right, this Heaven Heart technique does have the ability to lose one's mind. Without you by my side, it's really troublesome. Co sure smiled and said, "I think if this goes on, I'll be able to learn the basics in no time." Chu nodded. She had already learned the basics. Her progress was extremely fast. He could clearly feel it. However, it was enough for her to cultivate to this point for now. Her mind was like electricity. He did not want her to cultivate any further in case she could really pry into the secrets of heaven. There was a price to pry into the secrets of heaven. It would usually shorten one's lifespan. Chu did not want her to pay such a price. He decided to try cultivating it himself. If there was any danger, he would just destroy it. After Co sure left, Chu returned to the house. He sat cross-legged on the bed and began to circulate the Heaven Heart technique. As the Heaven Heart technique circulated, the Buddha in the void of his mind suddenly changed. The Buddha, who was chanting the Mahavarokana's immobility scripture with his eyes closed slowly, opened his eyes. There was no sadness or joy in his gaze. It was as if he was looking down on all things and observing all living beings. The Heaven Heart technique was suddenly messed up. It then disappeared from his memory. He was at a loss and did not know how to cultivate. Chu opened his eyes in shock. Chapter 1251. Chu frowned as he looked at the void in his mind, at Mahavarokana Buddha. The Great Light Scripture, Mahavarokana Buddha's Immobility Scripture, Heavenly Demon Scripture, Earth Matrix and Reincarnation Scripture. These four scriptures belong to four Buddhas, one Buddha body and four Buddha heads. They had always been quietly chanting in their minds, doing nothing but chanting. This was Mahavarokana Buddha's first move, yet he had already dispelled the Heavenly Heart Scripture. If it could alarm Mahavarokana Buddha, it must be something extraordinary. There must be something wrong with this Heavenly Heart Scripture. He frowned as he pondered, but nothing came out of it. Thus, he picked up the Heavenly Heart Scripture and sensed it again. It was still dangerous, so it was best not to cultivate it. After some thought, he imprinted it in his mind again, closed his eyes, and began to cultivate. The result was no different from the previous time. Mahavarokana Buddha opened his eyes again, and with an emotionless gaze, he dispelled the memory of the Heavenly Heart Scripture in his mind. Chu opened his eyes and frowned as he stared at the Heavenly Heart Scripture. His thoughts were as fast as lightning. After a while, he decided to trust Mahavarokana Buddha's judgment and intuition. It was obvious that Mahavira Buddha valued the danger of the heavenly heart scripture more than his intuition and directly cut off the opportunity to cultivate it. Since Mahavira Buddha had been alarmed, if he continued to be stubborn and blinded by greed and insisted on cultivating it, he would be digging his own grave. Suddenly, he flew to Tianshu courtyard. Xiao Shi was reading in the courtyard, dressed in a flawless white tunic. When she saw him, a smile appeared on her beautiful face. "Shall we continue cultivating?" Chu shook his head. "No. Then I'll cultivate it myself," Xiao Shi said. "I think my aptitude is suitable for this." Chu said, "You can't cultivate it either. I'm here to cripple it." Xiao Shi frowned at him. "What's wrong with you?" Chu knew there was no point in talking, so he sat opposite Xiao Shi and reached out to grab her left wrist. "Cripple it first." Xiao Shi's wrist struggled, but she could not break free from Chu Li's grip. After Chu Li's inner energy entered her body, it instantly devoured her inner energy. Her meridians were emptied in the blink of an eye, and all her cultivation had turned into water. Suddenly, she felt weak, as if she had just recovered from a serious illness. Her vigorous spirit had also weakened, and the tiredness for not sleeping for a whole night seemed to have found its way to her. Xiao Shi's beautiful face darkened as she glared at him coldly. "Chu Li, you've really gone mad," Chu Li said. "No matter how I think about it, I still don't think it's appropriate. The Tianxin technique can't be casually cultivated. I think it's great." Xiao Shi said snappily, "Your mind is clear. There's nothing wrong with it. Who knows? Maybe I'm suitable for this. You just had to cripple my martial arts. You're despicable." Chu Li shook his head. "If you cultivate the heavenly heart technique, will the prophecy pavilion come looking for you?" Xiao Shi frowned at him. Chu Li said, "You don't get involved in karma at first, but once you start cultivating this, things will get out of hand. They'll definitely come looking for you, and they might even want to take you in. Isn't that a good thing?" Xiao Shi scoffed. The prophecy pavilion was also a famous sect. Although it was not one of the 8 major sects in the Fu dynasty, its reputation was not inferior to the 8 major sections. It was only because of the stargazing pavilion that it could not be listed among the 8 major sections. "It's fine if I don't become a disciple of the prophecy pavilion." Chu Li shook his head. He had seen the consequences of Ding Ruijia using the secret skill with his own eyes. He was deeply afraid of it and would never allow Xiao Shi to enter the prophecy pavilion. "You're being unreasonable," Xiao Shi scoffed. Chu Li said, "In any case, it's better if you don't cultivate it. Fortunately, your cultivation is shallow now. It's not too late to cripple it." Xiao Shi glared at him fiercely. She struggled her wrist, wanted to shake off his big hand. However, Chu Li did not let go. A stream of inner energy instantly entered her body, restoring her cultivation level. However, it was the pure aura of the spirit crane breathing technique. Xiao Shi rolled her eyes at him. Chu Li shook his head and sighed. "I was thinking too simply. Now it seems that this heavenly heart technique is a big problem. I have to think of a way to deal with it." "How?" Xiao Shi scoffed. Chu Li said, "Send it to the Holy Church of Light." "Divert the trouble?" Xiao Shi frowned. "Sun Mingwei isn't someone to be trifled with." Chu Li smiled. "The Prophecy Pavilion and the Holy Church of Light are enemies now. Sun Mingwei won't reject it. This was all thanks to him. It was Ding Ruijia's provocation that caused Sun Mingwei to be dissatisfied with the Prophecy Pavilion. This incident also gave him some inspiration. It was easy to destroy the relationship between sects, but it was hard to repair it. His heavenly demonic power was extremely easy to turn things around. He could achieve the effect of moving 1,000 gold with little effort. "Then be careful. Don't play with fire," Xiao Shi scoffed. Chu Li nodded. "My lady, don't think about the heavenly heart technique anymore. It's not a proper skill. It's better if you don't cultivate it." "All right," Xiao Shi scoffed. She still trusted Chu Li's judgment. Since he said it was impossible to cultivate, then she would not cultivate it. Chu Li secretly sighed in relief. Divine Light Basilica, Great Light Peak. The sunset illuminated the basilica beautifully. The entire basilica was bathed in red light. Chu Li stood at the bottom of the stairs and took out 2 secret manuals. I got these 2 secret techniques from Ding Ruijia. My saint, please have a look. Sun Mingyue's white gown was dyed red. Her eyes were as clear as water. There was less coldness and sternness in them, and more gentleness. She looked at him. The secret techniques of the prophecy pavilion. Yes. Chu Li nodded solemnly. Bring them up, Sun Mingyue said. Chu Li stepped up the stairs and placed the 2 secret techniques on the table. Sun Mingyue picked up the Heavenly Heart technique and flipped through it. Then, she looked at the Peering Heaven technique and looked up at Chu Li in surprise. Chu Li's expression was solemn. He lowered his eyes and was more respectful than before. Sun Mingyue flipped through the 2 secret techniques again and sighed. You're really lucky. Chu Li replied, Yes. Sun Mingyue stared at him with her bright eyes. Logically, the secret techniques of the prophecy pavilion would never be leaked. How did you get them? I found them at Ding Ruijia's residence, Chu Li replied. You're really lucky. Sun Mingyue shook her head and sighed. So you killed Ding Ruijia? Yes. Chu Li nodded slowly. Sun Mingyue frowned and stared at him. You know you're in big trouble, right? Yes, Chu Li replied. Sun Mingyue chuckled. Actually, the Holy Church would have protected you even if you didn't hand over these 2 secret techniques. The prophecy pavilion would definitely seek revenge. They would never tolerate a disciple from the prophecy pavilion being killed. The prophecy pavilion had become more and more tyrannical in recent years. It was said that they were going to become one of the 8 major sections. They could be seen everywhere in the Fu dynasty. It was said that they had also extended their reach to the other 4 countries. It was against common sense for Chu Li to hand over these 2 secret techniques. Logically, the secret techniques that he obtained did not have to be handed over to the Holy Church. He could cultivate them himself or pass them on to others. Sun Mingyue immediately understood Chu Li's intentions after thinking about it. Chu Li replied, I don't want the Holy Church to protect me for nothing. I have to contribute something. It's rare for you to think that way. Sun Mingyue asked, You didn't cultivate these 2 secret techniques. Chu Li shook his head. I don't dare to cultivate them. Oh, Sun Mingyue chuckled. You're bold and unscrupulous, but there's something you don't dare to do. The prophecy pavilion is unpredictable. Who knows if their secret techniques can be cultivated? Chu Li shook his head and sighed. Moreover, once you've cultivated them, they'll definitely have a way to control them. Won't you be under their control? Smart. Sun Mingyue nodded in approval. Chu Li replied, I'm afraid of death. Sun Mingyue chuckled. She was extremely happy to obtain these 2 secret techniques. She was unprecedentedly happy. Chapter 1252. Chu Li said, I heard from Ding Ruijia that Stargazing Pavilion can't restrain Prophecy Pavilion. The only thing that can restrain Prophecy Pavilion is Goddess Attraction Mountain's heaven-defying technique. Heaven-defying technique. Sun Mingyue pondered. She really did not know about this. Prophecy Pavilion and Stargazing Pavilion's actions were mysterious, and it was difficult for outsiders to see through them. Sun Mingyue was peerless in martial arts, and almost no one below the enlightened master could defeat her. The Holy Church of Light also had a strong foundation, but she did not know about this secret. Chu Li said, That's why we can't deal with Prophecy Pavilion. Sun Mingyue frowned. Her excitement gradually dissipated when she thought about this. Although the Holy Church of Light was powerful, they could not defeat Prophecy Pavilion. As long as Prophecy Pavilion kept spreading the news that she, the Saint, and the Holy Church of Light were enemies, people would inevitably feel uneasy. Now that the Holy Church of Light was dominant, the other 3 sects would definitely take the opportunity to stir up trouble. Although she was not afraid, it would inevitably give the imperial family an excuse. The Holy Church of Light seemed powerful now, but she had to be more careful. The more powerful she was, the more she had to tread on thin ice. She had to be aware of hidden dangers to prevent herself from falling miserably. Chu Li was secretly happy to see Sun Mingyue like this. It was difficult to deal with Prophecy Pavilion alone, but it would be different if Sun Mingyue was involved. Chu Li continued, In my opinion, we should take the initiative. How? Sun Mingyue asked. Chu said, "Break into Prophecy Pavilion and destroy their lair." Wishful thinking. Sun Mingwe laughed. Chu said, "It's precisely because of wishful thinking that they won't expect it and won't guard against it. It's highly likely that we'll succeed." Sun Mingwe frowned and pondered. Chu said, "Probably no one has the same idea. Furthermore, Prophecy Pavilion has been arrogant all these years and has made many enemies. If we attack, they won't be willing to be left out." That makes sense." Sun Mingwe pondered. Chu said, "I've found their lair, but it's protected by formations. Does the Holy Church have any treasured weapons to break their formations?" "No." Sun Mingwe shook her head. Chu sighed. "It's a pity that I wasn't able to obtain their secret skill. Does the saint know of a secret skill from the Prophecy Pavilion that can disregard formations?" "Oh." Sun Mingwe was surprised. "You've seen it before?" Chu said, "I've seen this secret skill with my own eyes. Once it's performed, I'll become one with heaven and earth will become me. The formation will no longer obstruct me, and I'll be able to come and go as I please. It's truly amazing." Sun Mingwe said in a low voice, "With such a secret skill, we have to guard against it." She was thinking about the Great Light Peak. Chu asked, "They won't dare to come over, will they?" Sun Mingwe furrowed her brows and shook her head. "The disciples of the Pavilion of Heavenly Mysteries are even bolder than us. Their momentum is too strong now, and their actions have reached an unbridled level. They would definitely do something like this. I want to inspect it myself." With that, she disappeared in a flash. Chu shook his head helplessly. He did not expect her to act so swiftly and decisively. Boom! Suddenly, a muffled sound came from afar, like rolling thunder in spring. Chu activated the omniscient mirror. The Great Light Peak was shrouded in a formation. Usually, even if he used the omniscient mirror, he would not be able to observe too far away. However, the Divine Light Basilica's position was special. Standing there, he could observe the entire Great Light Peak. He saw Sun Mingwe and a middle-aged man colliding with each other. The middle-aged man was sent flying. This middle-aged man was handsome and had a slender figure. He was a rare beauty. Even at his age, he still had an indescribable charm. After their palms collided, Sun Mingwe's white clothes fluttered in the wind. Instead of retreating, she moved forward and caught up to the middle-aged man. Then, she struck him with her palm again. The middle-aged man countered with his palm, but was sent flying again. He spat out a mouthful of blood in the air and shot it at Sun Mingwe. Sun Mingwe moved like a ghost and instantly turned into a shadow. The blood arrow hit the shadow and fell to the ground without any resistance. Sun Mingwe appeared in front of the middle-aged man and struck him with her palm again. Her palm was soft and graceful, like a lover's caress. However, the middle-aged man retreated as if he was avoiding a snake or a scorpion. He used Sun Mingwe's palm energy to speed up, but no matter how fast he was, he could not outrun Sun Mingwe's body movement technique. Sun Mingwe caught up with him in an instant and struck him with her palm again. Chu felt that the middle-aged man's cultivation level was profound. It was similar to his own. He was already a top-notch grandmaster and rarely had a worthy opponent. It was no wonder he dared to come to the Great Light Peak. It was obvious that he had something up his sleeves. However, in front of Sun Mingwe, such a master was like a child in front of strong man. He could not withstand a single blow. Chu felt a chill in his heart. As his cultivation level deepened, he could feel how terrifying Sun Mingwe's cultivation level was. However, he did not expect that he could not withstand a single blow. The depth of Sun Mingwe's cultivation level was shocking and beyond his imagination. The middle-aged man suddenly shrank in the air. His clothes fluttered as if he was in a strong wind. He instantly grew taller. Then, his body movement technique suddenly sped up, and he shot into the distance like a stream of light. Sun Mingwe stood where she was. Her eyes were expressionless as she struck out with a divine light fist. Bang! It was like a clap of thunder. Chu saw the void collapse. The fist seemed to have broken through the void. The middle-aged man's body trembled and then exploded into a cloud of blood mist. The blood mist fell, and formed a bright pattern. However, there was no corpse left. Chu Li felt a chill down his spine. If the middle-aged man ended up like this, Chu Li and Sun Mingyue would not fare any better. They were purely suppressed by their cultivation level and could not resist at all. The same divine light fist was so powerful in her hands. It seemed that he had underestimated the divine light fist. The divine light fist was as famous as the light blade. It was one of the most powerful martial arts in the scripture of great light. Naturally, it had its own secrets. Most people cultivated the divine light fist, but their progress was average. Although the power they could unleash was strong, it was not terrifying. Everyone thought that the divine light fist was just SOSO. After he saw this fist, he decided to study the divine light fist well. He wanted to master it and rediscover the secrets of the scripture of great light. He wanted to work hard and improve his cultivation level as soon as possible. Without the support of a strong cultivation level, all extraordinary skills were flashy but useless. It was difficult for him to improve his cultivation level now, but he could not be greedy and put in hard work on extraordinary skills. Instead, he would look down on the basic hard work. He decided to go into isolated cultivation again to improve his cultivation level. Sun Mingyue appeared in the Divine Light Basilica in a flash. Chu Li calmed himself down and put away the omniscient mirror. He asked, "Did you really run into people from the Prophecy Pavilion?" "Yes." Sun Mingyue's eyebrows were solemn. Chu Li frowned. "They're quite bold." He did not expect the Prophecy Pavilion to be hostile towards the Holy Church of Light. Logically, Sun Mingyue was hostile towards the Prophecy Pavilion, but the Prophecy Pavilion should only hate him. Since they were spying on the Great Light Peak, it was obvious that they did not have good intentions. They were going against the Holy Church of Light. "I wonder how many secrets they've uncovered," Sun Mingyue said in a low voice. She was extremely angry. The Prophecy Pavilion had disregarded and humiliated the Holy Church of Light by recklessly going to the Great Light Peak. As a saint, it was as if she had been slapped in the face. Chapter 12:53. Chu Li asked, "Does the Prophecy Pavilion really want to start a war with us? Humans don't intend to harm the tiger, but the tiger will devour them." Sun Mingyue's brows were cold. "Looks like we'll have to teach them a lesson." Chu Li perked up and quickly asked, "Saint, are you really going to fight?" Sun Mingyue asked, "Do you know where their lair is?" Chu Li replied, "I've been to their lair, Cloud Dream Mountain, but I couldn't enter because it was protected by a formation. I don't have a secret skill like the Prophecy Pavilion. This formation is so mysterious that I can't break it in a short time, so I can't do anything to them." He guessed that Sun Mingyue knew where the Prophecy Pavilion's lair was, but she might not have been there herself. "It's impolite not to reciprocate." Sun Mingyue said, "Since they're here, we should go and take a look." Chu Li frowned. "Unfortunately, my formation skills are still shallow, so I can't enter. Why don't I go there and guard and see if I can bump into a disciple from the Prophecy Pavilion and force him to bring me in?" Sun Mingyue paced with her hands behind her back, her graceful figure covered by her white tunic. She felt that this was a tricky situation. The Prophecy Pavilion was indeed difficult to deal with. They could enter and leave Great Light Peak freely, but Great Light Peak could not enter and leave Cloud Dream Mountain as they pleased, which gave them an overwhelming advantage. This time, she only noticed the disciples from the Prophecy Pavilion when she personally patrolled. Before she went out, they had come countless times and investigated the Great Light Peak for a long time. Once a fight broke out, they could attack Great Light Peak at any time and hide in Cloud Dream Mountain. The Holy Church of Light could not do anything to them. Once they fell out with each other, they would always have to be on guard against their sneak attacks. As she thought of this, her face under the white veil became solemn, and her eyes became solemn. Chu Li said, "Saint, the Prophecy Pavilion isn't that scary. After all, they have fewer people." "That doesn't mean they're not scary." Sun Mingyue shook her head. Chu Li said, "They're very good at manipulating people. I'm just afraid that they'll encourage other sects to go against us. If that's the case, we have no choice but to fight." Sun Mingyue turned to look at him. Once they made it clear, It would not be easy for the Prophecy Pavilion to incite other sects to deal with the Holy Church of Light. If they did not make it clear that they were hostile, it would give the Prophecy Pavilion an opportunity to take advantage of them. Chu Li's tone suddenly changed. Actually, it's not that serious. It's not the time for the two factions to go to war yet. They might not have come to Great Light Peak to deal with us. It could be their style of doing things. For the time being, I'll deal with them alone. When he saw Sun Mingyue's eyes flicker, he changed his mind and no longer encouraged the Holy Church of Light to start a war with the Prophecy Pavilion. He did not want to arouse Sun Mingyue's suspicions, which would be too obvious and counterproductive. Sun Mingyue was more intelligent than most people. It was very likely that she would realize what had happened and become wary of Chu Li. Then, it would be even more difficult for her to mobilize the Holy Church of Light against the Prophecy Pavilion. How are you going to deal with it? Sun Mingyue asked calmly. Chu Li laughed. We'll wait for them to show up and raid their lair. You're quite bold, Sun Mingyue said. Chu Li said, this is what the saint meant by give and take. We'll intimidate them. Don't think that Great Light Peak is their backyard where they can come and go as they please. The Holy Church of Light is not to be trifled with. Sun Mingyue smiled. Do you really dare to go? Chu Li said, if I can't win, I'll run. My light body technique is quite good. He could tell that Sun Mingyue had not made up her mind to deal with the Prophecy Pavilion. After all, the Prophecy Pavilion was powerful, especially the hidden forces. Although the Holy Church of Light was strong, they did not want to cause too much trouble. However, she was not afraid of conflicts between disciples. But Saint, do we have any other martial arts or secret skills? Chu Li asked. I don't think I can do anything to the Prophecy Pavilion. Sun Mingyue scoffed. Your cultivation level is not high enough. What's the use of martial arts or secret skills? Chu Li said, my cultivation level is not high enough. Sun Mingyue said, there's always someone better. Cultivate honestly. There's no shortcut. Chu Li laughed. Then where did the saint learn all these skills from? Did you start cultivating when you were in your mother's womb? Half of my martial arts is natural. Sun Mingyue said, you can't compare. Natural. Chu Li nodded slowly. It was obvious that she had a fortuitous encounter. Sun Mingyue said, focus on your cultivation. Don't worry about the Prophecy Pavilion. I'm afraid that others might not recognize the Cloud Dream Mountain. Chu Li said. Sun Mingyue said, I have someone in mind. Where are you going to cultivate in seclusion? Gale City. Chu Li said, I'm worried about Gale Branch. Aren't you afraid that the people from the Prophecy Pavilion will go there? Sun Mingyue asked. Chu Li said, if I'm not there, they'll definitely attack the disciples of Gale Branch. I'll send someone to protect Gale Branch. You can cultivate in seclusion at Small Light Peak. Sun Mingyue said. Zhao Dai was too simple-minded and easy to be taken advantage of, but it was also because of this that he could be very useful. Yes, thank you, Saint. Chu Li fist saluted. He then returned to Small Light Peak and began to set up a formation. He wanted to cover Small Light Peak with a formation so that he would know if anyone came close. Even if they were thousands of miles away, he could return in an instant. After setting up the formation, he returned to the High Duke's public house and began to cultivate in seclusion. Outside Snowy Moon Valley, a long howl was heard. It was clear and resounding, and it was continuous. After the howl, there was a long yell. Li Hanyan, Miss Li, please come out. Li Hanyan was dressed in a green outfit and was practicing her swordsmanship on the martial arts field. When she heard the yell, she frowned and thought that the voice was familiar. It might be someone she knew, so she sheathed her sword and fluttered out of Snowy Moon Valley. She saw Fong Qingyang in front of a pine forest outside the valley. Fong Qingyang's green robe fluttered under the setting sun. He was like a jade tree that stood in the wind, handsome and elegant. When he saw Li Hanyan, Fong Qingyang smiled and fist saluted. Miss Li. Li Hanyan was stunned. Xiao Fong, it's you? Fong Qingyang smiled. It's me. You've recovered from your injuries? Li Hanyan said, you're quite brave to come here. Fong Qingyang smiled. I came here secretly this time. The people from Tempest Temple don't know. That's good. Li Hanyan nodded. What's the matter? I have something to tell you. Miss Li, Fong Qingyang said. Follow me then. Li Hanyin pointed at a mountain peak and turned to flutter away. The two of them arrived at a gazebo on the mountain peak. Li Hanyin sat at a stone table. Fong Qingyang sat opposite her and sighed. Miss Li, I have something to confess. Li Hanyin looked at him coldly with her bright eyes. Fong Qingyang felt an inexplicable guilt and smiled bitterly. I'm a disciple of the Holy Church of Light. The Holy Church of Light. Li Hanyin frowned. In that case, I saved the wrong person and we're enemies. No matter what, I'm deeply grateful for Miss Li's saving grace. Fong Qingyang said, I wonder if Miss Li has ever thought of making peace with the Holy Church. Li Hanyin revealed a smile that seemed to be mocking and ridiculing. Fong Qingyang said, Actually, we don't have much of a grudge against each other. Miss Li has already taken revenge. The Holy Church of Light doesn't want to kill me? Chapter 1254. Turn hostility into friendship. Li Hanyin muttered. Fong Qingyang was a little worried. Li Hanyin was still young and was at the prime of her life. Moreover, her martial arts were so powerful that she had never suffered a loss in the battle against the Holy Church of Light. She was afraid that she would underestimate the Holy Church and insist on fighting to the end. She might not listen to others. Li Hanyin muttered, Xiao Fong, do you mean what you say? When Fong Qingyang saw her reaction, he was overjoyed and hurriedly said, To tell you the truth, I am a priest of the Holy Church of Light. You're a priest? Li Hanyin was surprised. Her bright eyes sized him up and down. Finally, she shook her head and laughed. That's impossible, right? Then let me introduce myself solemnly. Fong Qingyang put on a serious expression and gave a fist salute. I'm Fong Qingyang, a Holy Church of Light's priest. Li Hanyin's eyes turned into crescents as she smiled and said, The Holy Church of Light's priest was beaten so badly by the Tempest Temple that he almost lost his life. I was careless last time. Fong Qingyang shook his head and said, These bald donkeys from the Tempest Temple are sinister and ruthless. They plotted against me, otherwise I wouldn't have ended up in such a sorry state. I've embarrassed myself in front of you. Li Hanyin said, Those from the Tempest Temple are indeed not to be trifled with. All right, I believe you. Fong Qingyang heaved a sigh of relief and asked hurriedly, So, does that mean you've agreed? In front of others, he was calm and confident, but in front of Li Hanyin, he lost his composure. His emotions were affected by Li Hanyin's every move, and he could not control himself. He did not have the imposing manner of a Dharmaraja. What are the duties of a consecrator? The status of a consecrator is transcendent, and he doesn't have any obligation to do so. He can choose whether to help or not. Fong Qingyang chuckled. The Holy Church of Light is extremely generous to its high officials. As long as they put in the effort, they'll naturally be rewarded handsomely in the form of pills or martial arts secret manuals. If that's the case, isn't being a high official a great job? Li Hanyin asked. Of course it's a good job. Not everyone can become our Holy Church's worshiper. Fong Qingyang said proudly. The Holy Church won't invite you if you're not qualified enough. Miss Li, you're young and your cultivation is profound, and your swordsmanship is outstanding. That's why you're qualified to be a high official. All right, I agree. Li Hanyin nodded happily. Fong Qingyang was overjoyed. He cupped his fists and said, Brilliant. Miss Li's wisdom is truly admirable. Young and vigorous people with excellent martial arts would never admit defeat. He originally thought that he would only have a glimmer of hope after a long period of persuasion and endless pestering. Moreover, he did not have much hope of success. In the end, he could only resort to the trick of injuring himself to gain the confidence of others. He did not expect Li Hanyin to agree so readily. Li Hanyin said faintly, Unless it's absolutely necessary, Snow Lunar Pavilion doesn't want to go against the Holy Church of Light. Of course, I have to adapt to the circumstances, but I have a condition. Please speak, Fong Qingyang said hurriedly. Li Hanyin said, I can't go against the martial arts world of the Ji dynasty. Of course. Fong Qingyang nodded hurriedly. The high priests of each country will not act against their own country. This is a basic rule. That's good, Li Hanyin said. Then there's no problem. Miss Li, would you like to come with me to meet the saint? Fang Qingyang asked. Li Hanyin frowned. Must you meet the saint? This is the rule, Fang Qingyang said. You can only become a high priest after meeting the saint. Oh, Li Hanyin frowned. Miss Li, Fang Qingyang said, the saint has the ability to read people's minds. If you really want to be a high priest, you must meet the saint. If you're just trying to be perfunctory, the saint doesn't have to meet you. Of course I'm sincere. Li Hanyin scoffed. All right, then let's go meet her. I've heard a lot about the saint, and I want to meet her too. That's great. Fang Qingyang was overjoyed. Li Hanyin had agreed so readily. It was obvious that she really wanted to be a high priest. He had worried for nothing. When do we depart? The sooner the better. Then wait for me. I'll go back and inform them. We'll depart immediately. All right. Fang Qingyang did not expect Li Hanyin to be so bold. She was not worried that it was a scheme to lure her to the Great Light Peak. She trusted him. As the sun set, Fang Qingyang and Li Hanyin arrived outside the Divine Light Basilica on the Great Light Peak. Throughout the journey, Li Hanyin had been cold and aloof. Despite Fang Qingyang's fiery enthusiasm, it could not melt Li Hanyin's icy heart. She had been cold and aloof the entire time. She only listened quietly to Fang Qingyang's words, refusing to comment. She would occasionally respond, but most of the time she ignored him. Fang Qingyang could feel her alienation, but he did not give up. The more cold and arrogant she was, the more Fang Qingyang liked her. He had always liked Sun Mingyue from the bottom of his heart, but Sun Mingyue was unreachable. As time passed and Sun Mingyue's power grew, he slowly accepted his fate. He no longer wished for anything more and cut off his feelings for her. Although Li Hanyin was not as beautiful as Sun Mingyue, she was still a rare beauty. Moreover, she had saved his life before. Her temperament was somewhat similar to Sun Mingyue's, and she had drawn out the feelings he had been suppressing, causing him to fall deeply in love. Doing came out in a green gown. She pursed her lips and smiled. Priest, the saint requests your presence. Fang Qingyang nodded and smiled at Li Hanyin. Miss Li, let's go in. Li Hanyin followed him into the basilica. She was slightly nervous. She did not know if Sun Mingyue could see through her. If she was seen through, it would be a huge threat to Brother Chu. Although Brother Chu had told her that she could meet Sun Mingyue without worry, she was still worried. She looked up and sized up Sun Mingyue, who was behind the long table. The white veil that was covering her face was placed on the table, revealing her beautiful face. She sighed to herself. As expected of the number one beauty of the Li dynasty, she is not inferior to the number one beauty of the Ji dynasty, Xiao Shi. Sun Mingyue put down the dossier and looked at her. High official Li. Li Hanyin gave a fist salute. Greetings, Saint. Sun Mingyue waved her hand to indicate that there was no need for formalities. You know Du Feng? Yes, Li Hanyin replied. Sun Mingyue asked. Chu Li knows him too? Yes. Li Hanyin nodded. Chu Li and Du Feng know each other, right? Sun Mingyue asked. Li Hanyin hesitated and nodded slowly. Yes, they know each other. How is their relationship? As far as I know, they've only met once. It's just a nodding acquaintance, Li Hanyin replied. Then who taught you martial arts? Sun Mingyue asked. It's not just Snow Lunar Pavilion's martial arts, right? Both Big Brother Du and Big Brother Chu taught me, Li Hanyin replied. What a great opportunity. Sun Mingyue showed a hint of admiration. You've learned from both sects' strengths to achieve what you have today. I'm just lucky, Li Hanyin replied. Sun Mingyue sized her up. Li Hanyin's body was covered by a thin veil. She could not see what was going on in her mind. She could only vaguely see the faces of Du Feng and Chu Li in her mind, as well as the scene of them teaching her martial arts. Sun Mingyue guessed that Li Hanyin cultivated a unique heart technique that could isolate her from prying eyes. Moreover, she sensed a strong killing intent from Li Hanyin. She had killed many people, which was rare for someone of her age. Chapter 1255. Li Hanyin shook her head. I haven't seen Big Brother Du either. He's probably injured and is currently recuperating in isolation. He hasn't come out for a long time. Unfortunately, it seems like he can't withstand an enlightened master's attack. Sun Minghua nodded and said to Fong Qingyang, "Give High officially the token and send her back." "Yes," Fong Qingyang replied. After Li Hanyin left the Divine Light Basilica, she secretly sighed in relief. Sun Minghua was indeed powerful. Her aura was as vast as the sea and mountains, even more powerful than Big Brother Chu. She was indeed a heroine. Li Hanyin was far inferior to her. It seemed like she had to work harder on her cultivation. After descending the Great Light Peak, she rejected Fong Qingyang's escort and walked back on her own. In the evening, she stopped in a forest to rest. Before the sun set, she started a bonfire. When the bonfire was lit, she looked up and saw a middle-aged man floating in front of her. The middle-aged man was handsome and wore a black robe. When he came to the bonfire, he glanced at Li Hanyin and said, "Li Hanyin?" Li Hanyin looked at him. "Who are you? Do you know Zhao Dai?" The middle-aged man asked. Li Hanyin frowned. "What Zhao Dai?" She really did not know who Zhao Dai was. Chuli did not tell her that he was disguised as Zhao Dai. She only knew that he had an identity in the Holy Church of Light, but did not know that he was Zhao Dai. The middle-aged man stared at her face as if trying to discern whether she was telling the truth or not. Seeing that she did not seem to be lying, he frowned and shook his head. "Forget it. It's useless to talk about this. If I kill you, Zhao Dai will naturally appear. You can only blame yourself for mistakenly recognizing someone inhuman. You can't blame anyone else." As he finished speaking, he pressed his palm down. Li Hanyin had goosebumps all over her body. She used a strange footwork to avoid the palm. The middle-aged man retracted his palm. He did not expect her to have such a body movement technique at such a young age to be able to avoid his palm. He stopped looking down on her, and his body suddenly sped up. He turned into a blurry shadow and suddenly appeared behind her. Then he slammed his palm down. Ding! Li Hanyin blocked the attack with her sword in time. The blade of her sword trembled violently, like a snake wriggling. It shook to dispel the palm force on the sword. It was a unique and mysterious sword technique. However, the palm force was extremely condensed. Even the mysterious sword force could not completely dissolve it. The remaining palm force entered her body. Her face immediately turned red and then paled. After the palm energy entered her body, it kept changing from extreme yin to extreme yang, from mist and smoke to sword and saber. The change was so abrupt that she couldn't react in time. She could only watch as it destroyed her internal organs, and in the blink of an eye, she was severely injured. When a middle-aged man saw that Li Hanyin was injured, he suddenly sped up and rushed to her. He slammed his palm on her chest, wanting to end her life. He hated Zhao Dai, but since he could not find Zhao Dai, he vented his anger on others. He wanted to kill the people around Zhao Dai to anger him and force him to show himself. Li Hanyin's reflexes were extraordinarily fast. Once again, she placed her sword horizontally across her chest. Ding! Li Hanyin was sent flying along with her sword. She tumbled in the air, a trickle of blood seeping from the corner of her mouth. The middle-aged man appeared in midair in a flash. He came to Li Hanyin's side and slapped her again. Bang! Like a muffled thunderclap, a huge hand suddenly appeared and collided with the middle-aged man's palm. The middle-aged man was sent flying. Chuli appeared in the air, grabbed Li Hanyin by the waist, and glided to the ground. A stream of inner energy from the Earth Matrix and reincarnation scripture entered her body and began to dissolve the 9 kills palm. Big Brother Chu. Li Hanyin's pale face broke into a smile. Miss Li, an angry roar came from afar. Fong Qingyang shot toward the middle-aged man like a stream of light. He activated the divine light body and moved as fast as lightning. Bang! He and the middle-aged man's palm collided, and both of them were sent flying. He was shocked in the air. He did not expect this guy to have such a pure inner energy and such a profound cultivation level. He was slightly stronger than him. Li Hanyin said, "Big Brother Chu, Xiao Fong is no match for him." Chuli nodded. Although Fong Qingyang was a priest His cultivation level was the weakest among the four priests. This middle-aged man was Zhu Hua, Ding Ruijia's senior brother. He was a master of the prophecy pavilion, and his cultivation level was far higher than Fang Qingyang's. Li Hanyin said, "Help Xiaofang." Chu Li nodded. With a point of his finger, a petrifying finger shot out soundlessly. Zhu Hua attacked with palm after palm, pressuring Fang Qingyang so much that he could not catch his breath and kept retreating. Although he was retreating, Fang Qingyang was not to be outdone. He used his divine light fist to fight back. He was originally escorting Li Hanyin in secret to avoid any accidents or to prevent the people from the Holy Church of Light from offending her again. When he saw Li Hanyin starting a bonfire, he wanted to catch a few musk deer to make food for her. He did not expect Li Hanyin to be attacked and injured in the blink of an eye. He blamed himself for being careless and was angry that Zhu Hua had injured Li Hanyin. What annoyed him even more was that Chu Li was the one who saved Li Hanyin. Chu Li had dealt with him before, and he had defeated him. His killing intent surged, and he wanted nothing more than to kill Zhu Hua with a single punch. Therefore, he fought back recklessly. The petrifying finger was silent, and Zhu Hua's senses were far sharper than an ordinary person's. He was immediately alarmed and knew that he could not take it head-on, so he quickly dodged sideways. Another petrifying finger shot out. Zhu Hua dodged again. The petrifying fingers formed a net of finger energy that shrouded him. Zhu Hua kept retreating, avoiding the finger energy. Unknowingly, he had retreated more than 100 feet before he could calmly avoid the finger energy. Chu Li held Li Hanyin in his arms and activated the Earth Matrix and Reincarnation Scripture's inner energy to dissolve the 9 kills palm energy. At the same time, he moved his 5 fingers and shot out petrifying fingers. His inner energy seemed endless, beyond imagination. The petrifying finger seemed to be silent and had no aura, but it consumed a lot of inner energy. Even a grandmaster could not shoot more than a few times. Chu Li relied on the endless spiritual energy to replenish it and continued to shoot out finger energy as if it was an ordinary finger energy, maximizing the power of the petrifying finger. Fang Qingyang watched as Chu Li stood where he was, forcing Zhu Hua to keep retreating with a light tap of his finger. He felt very uncomfortable, especially when he saw that Li Hanyin was smiling despite her pale face, which made him feel even more uncomfortable. Zhu Hua stopped after retreating 30 feet and frowned at Chu Li. He vaguely felt that Chu Li's aura was familiar, but he was surprised to find that it was not Zhao De. Chu Li let go of Li Hanyin and stared at Zhu Hua with a serious expression. He knew that Zhu Hua had not shown his true abilities. The most terrifying thing about the disciples of the Prophecy Pavilion was their body movement technique, which was almost magical. After experiencing Ding Ruijia's body movement technique, he was extremely wary of the disciples of the Prophecy Pavilion. Although the petrifying finger was powerful, it was best at sneak attacks. It could silently freeze one's body and change the situation in an instant. The disciples of the Prophecy Pavilion had keen intuition and could easily avoid sneak attacks. Once they were prepared, Zhu Hua's body movement technique could not threaten him at all. Zhu Hua stared at him and sized him up. He scoffed. "Who are you?" "Chu Li," Chu Li said in a low voice. "Chu Li from the Ji dynasty?" Zhu Hua frowned. Chu Li said calmly, "That's me." He appeared in front of Zhu Hua in a flash and launched a Heavenly King Palm. He was not afraid of the Heavenly King Palm exposing his identity. It looked normal on the surface and was just a simple palm energy. The only way to counter the 9 kills palm was with the Heavenly King Palm. Zhu Hua countered with his palm. Bang! Chu Li took a step back, but Zhu Hua was sent flying. The Heavenly King Palm was extremely overbearing and powerful. Fang Qingyang frowned. He did not expect Chu Li's martial arts to improve so quickly. When they first met, Chu Li was still inferior to him. In just half a year, he had turned the world upside down and surpassed him. He had already experienced Zhu Hua's palm energy. It was extremely pure and profound. He was not a match for Zhu Hua, but Zhu Hua was defeated by Chu Li and looked like he could not withstand a single blow. Chapter 1256. Chu Li turned and said, "Great Priest Fong, what are you waiting for?" Fong Qingyang was stunned and frowned at him. Chu Li said, "I can't handle him myself." Fong Qingyang was in disbelief. He watched helplessly as Chu Li sent Zhu Hua flying with one palm and gained the upper hand. Chu Li said impatiently, "Great Priest Fong, can't you see that his cultivation level is much higher than ours?" Fong Qingyang glanced at Li Hanyan. Li Hanyan was staring at Zhu Hua. Her eyes were bright and sparkling, and she looked eager to try. He was startled and said, "Miss Li, don't do it, let me." He rushed to Chu Li's side, and when Chu Li attacked, he took the opportunity to launch a divine light fist silently. Bang! Chu Li took a step back and sent Zhu Hua flying with his heavenly king palm again. Fong Qingyang's divine light fist arrived in front of Zhu Hua. Zhu Hua floated in the air and spun, dispersing the divine light fist effortlessly. Fong Qingyang was secretly annoyed. His fist force could do nothing to him, but Chu Li's palm force sent him flying. It seemed like Chu Li's cultivation level was not higher than his. Li Hanyan said, "I'll do it too." She unsheathed her sword and was about to attack when Chu Li grabbed her. Li Hanyan was indignant. "Big brother Chu." Chu Li shook his head. "Don't fight him." Zhu Hua's light body technique was too powerful. Although Li Hanyan's swordsmanship was good, it was full of loopholes in Zhu Hua's eyes. He could use his body technique to counter her at any time. It was too dangerous to fight her, and Chu Li did not want to take the risk. Li Hanyan stomped her feet helplessly and sheathed her sword. Seeing how obedient she was, Fong Qingyang was jealous and annoyed. He said coldly, "Brother Chu, your cultivation level is improving at an amazing speed." Chu Li smiled. "I was just lucky. Priest is improving too. Not as good as you." Fong Qingyang was a little uncomfortable. Li Hanyan said, "Big brother Chu, you can't beat him?" Chu Li shook his head. "This guy is hard to deal with." The Heavenly King Palm sent Zhu Hua flying again and again, but could not really hurt him. It was all thanks to the uniqueness of the Heavenly King Palm. Even if he joined forces with Fong Qingyang, he could only barely block it. "Priest, if the saint makes a move, he'll definitely die," Chu Li said. Fong Qingyang shook his head lightly. The saintess had a high status and authority. How could she casually make a move? Unless it was the most crucial moment, the saintess would not make a move. Otherwise, wouldn't it make everyone seem useless? Chu Li sighed. "Without the saint, we can't do anything to him. Then let's just wait," Fong Qingyang said. Zhu Hua looked at them with a frown and suddenly retreated. Fong Qingyang breathed a sigh of relief. Li Hanyan heaved a sigh of relief and said, "In the end, he still managed to escape. That was close." Chu Li shook his head, his body still tensed up. Bang! Zhu Hua suddenly appeared behind Li Hanyan, and Chu Li met him with a palm strike. Their palms collided again, and Zhu Hua was sent flying backward. In a fit of rage, Fong Qingyang followed up with a divine light fist. Zhu Hua's figure swayed as he fluttered away from the divine light fist. His body was like a ghost, flashing and reappearing as he attacked Li Hanyan relentlessly. Li Hanyan's sword was too slow, and she could not stab him at all. Chu Li managed to block in front of Li Hanyan by a hair's breadth, and it was frightening. He was familiar with the martial arts of the Divine Prophecy Pavilion, and the power of the Nature Restoration Manifestation was gradually unleashed. Without the Nature Restoration Manifestation's early detection, he could not save Li Hanyan in time with his body movement technique. In the blink of an eye, more than 20 palm strikes had passed, but Zhu Hua was relentless and had no intention of giving up. Among the three of them, only Chu Li could block him with the Heavenly King Palm. Li Hanyan and Fong Qingyang could not even touch Zhu Hua's figure. Their efforts were in vain. Li Hanyan's heart sank, and she secretly gritted her teeth, deciding to go back and cultivate as hard as she could. Fong Qingyang, on the other hand, was furious, feeling like a clown. Chu Li said in a low voice, "Priest, you go first." "I'm not leaving," Fong Qingyang said coldly. Chu Li said, "I can escape with Han Yin, but I can't do it with you. I've become a burden." Fong Qingyang gritted his teeth. Chu Li nodded. Fong Qingyang snorted angrily, and his figure suddenly changed. A ray of light seemed to fall on him from the sky, and his body suddenly lit up. His entire aura suddenly surged like a huge wave. His figure suddenly sped up, and as fast as lightning, he stood in front of Zhu Hua. Bam, 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 bam. The two of them exchanged more than 20 blows in a row. The divine light fist was majestic and did not seem to be at a disadvantage, and they fought from the ground to the sky. Chu Li took the opportunity to shoot out the petrifying finger. Zhu Hua's figure flashed, and he evaded the petrifying finger. Fong Qingyang used the secret technique of great light, and Zhu Hua felt threatened, so he dared not underestimate it. Chu Li's petrifying finger was tricky and strange, and it seemed to be everywhere. Every blow hit the path that Zhu Hua had to take, and it seemed to see through the changes in his body movement technique, forcing him to constantly change, and his speed was greatly reduced. Fong Qingyang kept him occupied and did not give him a chance to escape. Chu Li's petrifying finger did not require inner energy, and it was continuous, forming a net of finger energy that enveloped him. The two of them worked together to suppress Zhu Hua. Li Hanyan was exultant as she watched, feeling that there was a lot of hope. As time passed, Fong Qingyang's fist force became stronger and stronger, and Zhu Hua was gradually unable to suppress it. In addition, the petrifying finger was constantly hindering his body movement technique, and his inner energy could not flow smoothly, which indirectly weakened the power of the 9 kills palm. Chu Li appeared beside him in a flash, and with a palm strike, he condensed all the inner energy in his body into this heavenly king palm. Bam! Zhu Hua cannot avoid it, so he took this palm strike head-on and was sent flying backward. Bam! The divine light fist followed closely behind, and he stretched out his palm, trying to dissolve it. The 9 kills palm was ever-changing, and it was the best at reducing fist force. Chu Li appeared again in a flash, in another heavenly king palm. Bam, 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 bam. Zhu Hua continued to exchange blows with Chu Li, and the speed at which he was sent flying increased again and again. Bam! Zhu Hua's figure suddenly stopped, and he fell straight to the ground. Fong Qingyang appeared in the void behind him, and his body floated in the air as he slowly retracted his fist. His entire body moved without any wind, and his beard and hair danced in the wind as if he was in the midst of a strong gale. Seeing his situation, Chu Li knew that the secret technique of great light had been activated to its final stage. If this continued, he would really burn his vital essence and directly ascend to the great light boundary of the Grandmaster. Chu Li did not expect him to be so unyielding. I got it. After Zhu Hua fell to the ground, he immediately flipped over and stood up, blood gushing out from the corner of his mouth. He widened his eyes and pointed at Chu Li. You're Zhao De. Chu Li was stunned and frowned at him. What Zhao De? In a flash, Fong Qingyang appeared behind Zhu Hua again in a flash, and with another punch. Zhu Hua disappeared in an instant. Chu Li frowned and realized that Zhu Hua was already 100 meters away. He reached out and grabbed Li Hanyan's sleeve, and in a flash, he appeared 100 feet away, and in another flash, he appeared 200 feet away. Fong Qingyang, however, shot into the forest like a stream of light, passing through the forest and shooting toward Zhu Hua, who was 100 meters away. However, Zhu Hua had already appeared 200 meters away, and his speed was beyond their imagination. Chu Li, so you Zhao De, haha. Zhu Hua's laughter rang from afar. No wonder. Chapter 12:57. Chu Li held onto Li Hanyan and stood where he was, shaking his head and sighing. Li Hanyan asked, Big Brother Chu, who is Zhao De? Who knows? Chu Li shook his head. Ridiculous. Does the priest know who Zhao De is? Fong Qingyang chased for a while, but could not catch up to Zhu Hua. He was furious that he could not catch up to an injured Zhu Hua even after activating his secret technique. This Zhu Hua was really powerful and a great enemy of the Holy Church. Fong Qingyang withdrew the secret technique of great light and said, Zhao De is a rising star of the Holy Church. He rose rapidly and is already a branch leader. He is famous in the Li dynasty, and you don't know him, Brother Chu? Zhu Hua's voice echoed in his ears, and he was dubious of Zhu Hua's words. Chu Li frowned. I've never heard of this Zhao Dai, but why did he think I was Zhao Dai? Don't tell me we look alike. There can't be such a coincidence in this world, right? Fang Xingyang looked Chu Li up and down, trying to see through his thoughts. Then, he shook his head and said, he's probably not in his right mind. He's probably confused after being injured. You look too different from Zhao Dai. Chu Li said, this is ridiculous. The priest used a secret technique. Is it okay? Fang Xingyang said, it's okay to escape. Chu Li laughed. Priest is afraid that I'll take revenge and hit him when he's down? Fang Xingyang smiled and did not deny it. The two looked like they were friends, but they were actually enemies who had fought to the death. He believed that Chu Li would not let go of this opportunity, and he would not let it go either. Li Hanyan asked, Big Brother Chu, do you have a grudge against each other? Chu Li smiled. I almost lost my life to the priest back then. What goes around comes around. I didn't expect this to happen again. But don't worry, priest, you used a secret technique to save Hanyan. I won't take advantage of the situation this time. Li Hanyan looked at Chu Li helplessly and then at Fang Xingyang. Young Fang, you leave first. I'll send you back, Fang Xingyang said. Li Hanyan rolled her eyes at him and scoffed. Do you want me to send you back, or do you want me to send you back? Fang Xingyang was at a loss for words. He was well aware of his own situation. Although his inner energy was still surging and boundless now that he had burned his blood essence, his essence, qi, and spirit were extremely weak, and he could faint at any moment. In this state, no matter how deep his inner force was, it was not suitable for him to fight with others. Chu Li said, Priest, let's go back first. That guy is injured and won't dare to come again. Moreover, we can escape with only Han Yan. Fang Xingyang's expression darkened, and he glared at him. It was obvious that she thought he was a burden, which made him feel extremely uncomfortable. Chu Li looked at him with a smile. Li Hanyan blinked her bright eyes. Xiao Fang, let's go back. All right, Fang Xingyang said slowly. Chu Li waved his hand. Thank you, priest. We'll meet again next time. I'll try again next time. Fang Xingyang snorted and gave Li Hanyan a fist salute. Take care, Miss Li. You too. Li Hanyan nodded. When Fang Xingyang saw that she did not show any signs of reluctance, he felt an indescribable bitterness in his heart. He forced a smile and drifted away. You're saying that the disciple of the Divine Mystery Pavilion said that Chu Li is Zhao Dai, and Zhao Dai is Chu Li? Sun Minghua frowned at Fang Xingyang. Fang Xingyang's face was as pale as a sheet, but his eyes were bright as he said, I dare not lie to you, Saint. It's true. Sun Minghua got up and walked down the stairs. She paced in front of the table with her hands behind her back, looking elegant and noble. Fang Xingyang's gaze followed her back and forth. After a while, Sun Minghua shook her head. Impossible. She had entered the Ji dynasty under an assumed name and originally wanted to challenge Chu Li, but she encountered Du Feng and lost to him. She was not really defeated, but with the martial arts of her incarnation, she could only lose and not win. It was a pity that she did not get to witness Chu Li's intelligence and martial arts. However, no matter how unconstrained she was, she could not link Zhao Dai and Chu Li together. Zhao Dai was reckless and impulsive, unyielding and stubborn, completely different from the mellow and calm Chu Li. They were completely different people. Fang Xingyang said, I also think it's ridiculous and unbelievable. Zhao Dai and Chu Li are completely different. How could they be together? Zhao Dai. Sun Minghua frowned. The Prophecy Pavilion hates him to the core and will do anything to get rid of him. But Zhao Dai is now hiding in Small Light Peak. They can't do anything. Why would the Prophecy Pavilion's disciple want to kill Miss Li? Fang Xingyang was puzzled. It has nothing to do with Miss Li, right? Could it be that they deliberately framed Zhao Dai and put on an act to deceive me? It's highly possible. Sun Minghua nodded slowly. Fang Xingyang said, Why don't we go to Small Light Peak to take a look? All right, Sun Minghua replied. Sun Minghua disappeared from Divine Light Basilica in a flash. Fang Qingyang did not move. He knew that his light body technique was far inferior to the saint's. By the time he rushed over, the saint would have already returned, so there was no need to waste his energy. Chu Li had already expected Sun Mingyue to come over, so he was already sitting in the thatched cottage at Small Light Peak to channel. When Sun Mingyue appeared at Small Light Peak, she realized that she was trapped in a formation and could not get close to the thatched cottage. Chu Li suddenly appeared and gave a fist salute. "Saint, follow me." He walked forward using a strange step technique, and Sun Mingyue followed closely behind him. Following his footprints, they soon arrived at his thatched cottage. Instantly, it was as warm as spring, and it was a completely different world from the harsh wind outside. After entering the narrow cottage, Chu Li sat on the couch and gave a fist salute with a smile. "Saint, why are you here all of a sudden?" Sun Mingyue sat on a low stool. "I'm here to take a look." "Thank you for your concern, Saint." Chu Li sighed. "Even with the protection of the formation, I'm still worried that the Prophecy Pavilion's people can come in at any time." Sun Mingyue asked, "Zhao De, do you know Chu Li?" The cottage was narrow, and the delicate fragrance from her body wafted into Chu Li's nose. He was stunned. "Chu Li? Which Chu Li?" "Chu Li from the Ji dynasty. I've heard of him. Du Feng of the south and Chu Li of the north. He's quite famous," Zhao De said. "Why? Are you going to deal with him?" Sun Mingyue asked. "You've never seen him before?" She stared at Chu Li without blinking. Although she could not read Zhao De's mind, she could clearly see the changes in his mood. Her eyes were very sharp, and she could clearly see through the slightest change in his expression. If Zhao De had a guilty conscience, he would not be able to hide it from her. Chu Li was already prepared for such a situation and had practiced it many times. With his precise control over his body, he was able to observe every minute change in his expression. "Saint, I think I've seen him before." "According to the Prophecy Pavilion's disciple, you're related to Chu Li," Sun Mingyue said. Chu Li chuckled. "Could it be that I'm his biological brother? I'm an orphan, so I might have only one parent. Did the Prophecy Pavilion's disciple figure it out?" "If that's the case, what are you going to do?" Sun Mingyue asked. Chu Li smiled. "It's hard to say. If he's really my brother, I can't just watch him die, can I? But what's the relationship between us?" Sun Mingyue said. "You don't have to care about what he said. He's just spouting nonsense to confuse everyone. However, you must be careful of the Prophecy Pavilion. They haven't given up and are still looking for you." Chu Li scoffed. "These people are really troublesome. I feel like there's nowhere safe and they'll find me. I can't cultivate in isolation and peace." Chapter 1258. Sun Mingyue muttered, "If that doesn't work, let's go to the Great Light Peak." "The Great Light Peak isn't safe either." Chu Li shook his head. "Didn't you encounter one last time?" "I killed one last time. I might not dare to come again," Sun Mingyue said. Chu Li smiled. "That's hard to say. It's safer than your place," Sun Mingyue said. Chu Li saw that although she spoke calmly, her expression was firm and inviolable. So he stopped struggling and nodded. "All right, let's go to the Great Light Peak then. I'll arrange a place for you," Sun Mingyue said. "You can calm down and go into isolated cultivation." Chu Li fist saluted. "Thank you, Saint." He understood that Sun Mingyue wanted to keep him under her watch. She was still suspicious of him. Even if she did not suspect him, it was to be prepared and to observe him more clearly. It seemed that Sun Mingyue's inability to see his own heart was a sore point. If someone had said that Fang Qingyang was a traitor, she would not have believed or doubted him. After all, she could see through his thoughts. "Follow me," Sun Mingyue said. Chu Li said no more and followed her out of the Small Light Peak to the Great Light Peak. There was a cave in the ice peak that was surrounded by a profound formation. Even with his ability, it would be difficult for him to escape in a short time. Chu Li frowned and quickly deciphered the formation around him. He had a bad feeling about this. Sun Mingyue was closing in on him step by step. He could guess that Sun Mingyue's next move would be to reveal the dagger. He racked his brains to quickly decipher the formation around him. If he could not, his life would be in danger. Sun Mingyue led him deeper into the cave. Because it was an ice peak that was crystal clear, the cave was bright and soft. It was even brighter here than outside. There was only a bed, a table, and a chair in the cave with a few Buddhist scriptures on the table. It was a good place to meditate in isolation. Sun Mingwe said, "This is where I cultivate in isolation. It should be safe." "Thank you, Saint." Chu Li fist saluted. Sun Mingwe waved her lily-white hand and said, "There is no need to thank me. You should focus on improving your martial techniques as soon as possible. In the future, when we fight with the Pavilion of Heavenly Mysteries, it will be enough." Chu Li replied, "Don't worry, Saint. I won't shirk my duty to deal with the Prophecy Pavilion. These people are too sinister and ruthless. I must teach them a lesson." Then you should settle down and go into seclusion. "I'll come pick you up in half a month," Sun Mingwe said. "Yes." Chu Li nodded. As he watched Sun Mingwe leave without a sound, Chu Li quickly sat down and scribbled on the ground, concentrating on breaking the formation outside. A while ago, when he was flipping through the Sutra Pavilion, he saw 2 books on array formations. His experience in array formations had increased by a lot, and he felt a little more confident and hopeful. But even so, he couldn't break the array formation. If he stayed here obediently and waited for everything to come to light, he would definitely be exposed. Zhu Hua was really vicious. His words were aimed at his weak spot. He had to desperately raise his cultivation, so it would be extremely difficult to kill this guy. Sun Mingwe appeared gracefully. Fang Xingyang hurriedly gave a fist salute. "Saint, have you seen Zhao Dai?" "I've already made arrangements. He'll go into seclusion with peace of mind," Sun Mingwe said. Then, between him and Chu Li, Fang Xingyang asked. Sun Mingwe said, "Don't assume it's just a rumor. It's a mess to believe a word from the Prophecy Pavilion. You should go first." "Yes." Fang Xingyang nodded. He also felt that he was overreacting. Most importantly, it involved Chu Li. He was extremely wary of Chu Li, and with Zhao Dai involved, he dared not underestimate him. If it was true, the Holy Church would become a joke. He would rather believe that it was true than not. Even if it was not true, he still wanted to suppress Zhao Dai a little. "I'll go see Chu Li," Sun Mingwe said. "No," Fang Xingyang said. He and high officially have returned to the Ji dynasty. Once the saint stepped into the Ji dynasty, the enlightened masters in the Ji dynasty would definitely move and attack without mercy. No matter how powerful the saint was, she would not be an enlightened master's match. Sun Mingwe shook her head. They haven't returned to the Ji dynasty yet. Chu Li's light body technique is excellent. Fang Xingyang hesitated. Sun Mingwe said, "I can sense Li Hanyan's location. Don't worry." "Yes." Fang Xingyang nodded. Sun Mingwe suddenly disappeared. The next moment, she appeared beside Li Hanyan. Under the cold night sky, the moonlight shone like water. Li Hanyan was sitting next to the bonfire, meditating with her eyes closed. Her face was as pale as a sheet, without a trace of blood. Her body was exceptionally thin and frail, as if a gust of wind could blow her away. The moment Sun Mingwe appeared, Li Hanyan opened her eyes. They were bright and dazzling. When she saw that it was Sun Mingwe, Li Hanyan's expression softened. She gave a fist salute. "Greetings, Saint." Sun Mingwe waved her hand. "No need for formalities. Where's Chu Li?" "Big Brother Chu went to get some food," Li Hanyan said. "He'll be back soon." "Saint, are you here to kill a disciple of the Prophecy Pavilion?" "I want to meet Chu Li," Sun Mingwe said. "I've heard of him." Li Hanyan asked, "Saint, you've heard of Big Brother Chu as well?" "Du Feng of the south, Chu Li of the north," Sun Mingwe said. "He's quite famous. I heard from Feng Wang that he lives up to his reputation." Li Hanyan let out a smile. Sun Mingwe sat cross-legged across her. The bonfire shone on her veiled face, revealing her beautiful face through the white veil. Her eyes were as bright as torches. The crackling of the firewood could be heard from time to time. The surroundings were quiet. It was winter, and the insects had curled up and stopped chirping. The full moon shone coldly in the night sky. Li Hanyan closed her eyes again to meditate. Time passed unknowingly. After a quarter of an hour, Sun Mingwe asked, "Where did he go to get food?" Li Hanyan replied, He either went hunting or went to the nearby city to look for some food and wine. He's not worried that you won't be back for so long? Sun Mingwe asked. Li Hanyin shook her head. I'm not completely helpless. If someone from the prophecy pavilion comes again, I can take 2 hits. Big Brother Chu will be back in time. Sun Mingwe glanced at her and closed her eyes again. Li Hanyin also closed her eyes to meditate. She did not know that Chu Li had been imprisoned in a formation by Sun Mingwe. She felt that nothing could stop him. She only needed to calm down and heal her wounds. She did not have to worry about anything else. An hour passed by quickly. The full moon shone on them. The surroundings became quieter and the night grew darker. Only the crackling of the bonfire could be heard. Sun Mingwe opened her eyes and glanced coldly at Li Hanyin. Her confidence began to waver. She did not believe that Zhao Dai and Chu Li were the same person. However, the more bizarre the matter, the more careful one had to be. Reality often exceeded people's expectations. She was just curious to find out the truth. However, as time passed, and Chu Li was still nowhere to be seen, her heart sank. Could it be that the person from the prophecy pavilion was right? Once she thought about how ridiculous and terrifying it would be if it was true, her heart turned cold and emitted a murderous intent. Li Hanyin looked at her uncomfortably and could not help but shrink back. Chapter 1259. Time continued to pass, but Chu Li was still nowhere to be seen. Chu Li moved around in the cave, his face as calm as still water. He had already guessed that Sun Mingwe was beside Li Hanyin waiting for him to appear. If he did not appear, she would really suspect Zhu Hua's words. That would be the beginning of trouble. Once a thorough investigation was carried out, Sun Mingwe would definitely find out the truth based on her ability. He would definitely be hunted by the Holy Church of Light, and it would be difficult for him to survive. Not to mention others, Sun Mingwe alone was more than enough to kill him. Moreover, the Holy Church of Light had many masters. Not only him, but the High Duke's public house and the imperial residence would also be in trouble. Even Snow Lunar Pavilion would not be spared. The consequences were like 1,000-kilogram boulder pressing on his shoulders, crushing him. His mind became more agile. All the formations he had seen and heard were integrated in his mind. He desperately activated the omniscient mirror, trying to break through the shackles of the formation and get a general view of it, so that he could understand which formation it was. The omniscient mirror seemed to be covered by a veil and could not be seen clearly. Now, he could only guess based on the vague outline and verify it with some details. Then, he desperately tried to find a way to crack it. He was racing against time. He had 2 hours. If he did not appear in front of Sun Mingwe within 2 hours, she would definitely be suspicious and start investigating. He had to crack this formation within 2 hours. At this time, he yearned for the secret skill of the prophecy pavilion. If he had that secret skill, even if he had to pay the price, he would not be willing to bear such a huge risk and pressure. He could just use the secret skill to get out of the formation and appear in front of Sun Mingwe. This thought flashed through his mind, and he quickly focused on cracking the formation. Time continued to pass, but he did not make any progress. The omniscient mirror was still covered by a veil and could not see the full picture of the formation. He could only crack the formation by guessing its origin. Sun Mingwe opened her eyes and looked at Li Hanyin. Looks like Chu Li won't appear. Big Brother Chu will come back. Li Hanyin pursed her red lips. I don't know what happened, but he will come back sooner or later. It's been 2 hours, right? Almost 2 hours. Li Hanyin frowned. Saint, why are you looking for Big Brother Chu? Don't tell me you only want to see him. You are a busy man, and your time is precious. I just wanted to meet him. Sun Mingwe glanced around. Could it be that he saw me and hid to the side? Li Hanyin asked. Why is Brother Chu hiding from the saint? Sun Mingwe scoffed. He killed many of the Holy Church's disciples in the Ji dynasty's fairies' capital. If that's the case, Li Hanyin frowned. Could it be that the saint is seeking revenge? Sun Mingwe said, if there's a chance to teach him a lesson, of course we can't let it go. Then Big Brother Chu might have really avoided it. Li Hanyin nodded and said, he won't let himself be taken advantage of. Sun Mingwe smiled faintly. Her senses were sharp, so she would definitely be able to detect Chu Li the moment he appeared. However, Chu Li had yet to appear, so she had to consider his whereabouts. She would find out tonight whether Chu Li and Zhao Dai were the same person. No matter how good Zhao Dai's formation was, it was impossible for him to break through the formation and escape in a short period of time. If Chu Li did not show up, then Zhu Hua's words could not be completely ignored. They needed to investigate further. Chu Li's hands did not stop moving, leaving densely packed marks on the ground. However, his eyebrows were tightly knitted together and his face was gloomy. As time passed, the pressure on him increased, but he still had no clue. He felt that his brain was not working fast enough. If he could be a little faster, he might be able to dispel the fog and break through the formation without relying on the omniscient mirror. Unfortunately, although his mind worked like lightning, it was impossible for it to be as fast as lightning. Time was running out, but he still did not make any progress. If this continued, it would soon exceed 2 hours. He kept thinking of a way to save himself. Suddenly, he had a flash of inspiration. The 4 Buddhas and 1 demon in the void of his mind suddenly stopped chanting and began to think about the formation. In the past, when he wanted to control the 4 Buddhas and 1 demon, they did not respond and did not listen to him. They only chanted and did not do anything else. At first, he did not have high hopes and was just trying out. However, this time, the 4 Buddhas and 1 demon seemed to know that this was a crucial time, so they no longer disobeyed and obediently thought about the formation. Suddenly, his mind became extremely clear, and his thoughts became extremely agile. This time, he finally felt what it felt like to think like lightning. It was really faster than lightning, and he could reach the end with just a thought. Usually, he would need to think hard for a long time to figure it out, but now, he could figure it out with just one thought. He passed through all kinds of obstacles as fast as lightning and reached the end in an instant. This feeling made him understand what it meant to be extremely intelligent. He really had a clear understanding of heaven and earth, and everything in the world was under his control. He did not dare to be distracted and only focused on the formation. A formation gradually appeared in the void of his mind, from a part of it to a whole, from an outline to a specific and clear formation. Through deduction, he was able to reproduce the formation outside. This was completed in just a moment's time. If this kind of deduction had been done before, he would not have been able to complete it in a day. He immediately suppressed his joy and figured out what kind of formation it was. The next step was to break it. Right at this moment, exhaustion surged. His vision turned black as if he was going to pass out at any time. The 4 Buddhas and 1 demon in the void of his mind lost their soft light and became dim as if their vitality was dissipating. He cursed in his heart. The power of the 4 Buddhas and 1 demon could only hold on for a moment. The 4 Buddhas and 1 demon used their own spirit, and even though his spirit was strong, he could only hold on for a moment. His vision turned black, and he could no longer see the formation clearly. He wanted to break it, but he was powerless. He knew that if he persisted, the void of his mind would collapse, and the 4 Buddhas and 1 demon would disappear. He would be beaten back to his original form, which was more terrifying than being crippled of his martial arts. He would truly lose hope. He roared in his heart, full of unwillingness. God was playing tricks on him. He saw hope, but it immediately sent despair. Was this really his destiny? Was he going to die in the hands of the Holy Church of Light? Sun Minghua looked up at the night sky, shook her head, and stood up. Li Hanyan also stood up. Saint, you're leaving? Yes, since he's avoiding me. Then forget it. I won't force him to see me, Sun Minghua said faintly. Tell him that I'll look for him again. Yes. Li Hanyan closed fist saluted. However, she had a bad feeling. She could feel Sun Minghua's murderous intent, and it was even stronger than before. Sun Minghua shook her head and sighed to herself. It seemed that she was wrong. There was indeed something wrong with this Zhao Dai. When she thought of this, she had mixed feelings that she could not describe. She turned around, waved at Li Hanyan, and was about to leave. In fact, she did not want to leave. She felt that she might see Chu Li the next moment, and then she would not have to investigate Zhao De. She would not let the Holy Church of Light become a joke. Chapter 1260. As Chu Li's vision darkened, he gritted his teeth and continued to break the formation. Suddenly, there was a flash of light, and his body disappeared from the cave. The next moment, he appeared outside the formation, and then in a flash, he appeared in a forest. Standing on a tree in the forest, he gritted his teeth to prevent himself from passing out. However, his face was as pale as lime, and his eyes were dull. The void in his mind was dark. From the night sky, filled with bright stars and clear moonlight, it became a night sky without stars and a moon. Suddenly, a soft light flashed on the big round mirror. Then, the mirror floated up and lay flat. A strange symbol appeared on the mirror's surface. It was the concentration talisman. In the void, countless golden threads entered the void of the mind and landed on the big round mirror. The mirror gradually brightened and reflected the void of the mind, turning into a bright moon. Not only did the golden threads land on the mirror, but they also landed on the 4 Buddhas and 1 demon. They no longer stayed still and started chanting scriptures again. Chu Li let out a long sigh of relief. He was drenched in cold sweat. He almost crippled himself. It was a close call. He stood on the treetop and saw Sun Mingwei in the distance. She stood up and was about to leave. He was not in a hurry to show himself. Instead, he glided and approached her slowly. He knew that Sun Mingwei would definitely notice him. Sun Mingwei stopped abruptly and turned her head to look at him. Under the moonlight, Chu Li was dressed in a white robe with a long sword hanging on his waist. He glided on the treetop and looked indescribably handsome. It was the complete opposite of Zhao De's image. He glided to Li Hanyin's side and glanced at her before looking at Sun Mingwei. "Hanyin, this is—" Li Hanyin let out a sigh of relief, and so did Sun Mingwei. She looked at Chu Li from head to toe, wanting to see if he was the same person as Zhao De. "Big Brother Chu, this is the saint of the Holy Church of Light," Li Hanyin quickly said. Chu Li's expression changed. He frowned at Sun Mingwei and gave her a fist salute. "Oh, it's the saint. I've heard so much about you." Sun Mingwei asked, "You're Chu Li?" "Yes, I am," Chu Li said. "May I know why the saint is here? Are you looking for trouble with Hanyin?" "I'm not looking for trouble with her. I'm looking for trouble with you," Sun Mingwei said calmly. Her punch was light as a feather. Chu Li was aware of the power of the divine light fist. He glided away and easily dodged the punch. He frowned at her. Sun Mingwei said calmly, "How many disciples of the Holy Church of Light have you killed? I'll settle the score today." "Ha, let's settle the score." Chu Li laughed heartily. "All right, I'm going to have a taste of the saint's peerless martial arts." He unsheathed his sword, and the great heaven-deriving sword merged with many other sword techniques to form a unique sword technique that was even more powerful. A light stab was fast and tricky. Chu Li had seen Sun Mingwei's martial arts through the omniscient mirror. The combination of the nature restoration manifestation and the great heaven-deriving sword had forced Sun Mingwei to take the attack head-on. Bam! A divine light fist collided with his sword. The sword vibrated like a wriggling spirit snake. A buzzing sound could be heard as it dissolved the fist force of the divine light fist. At the same time, the cloud-slashing power devoured the fist force that entered and dissolved her random attack. She hurriedly threw this punch to block Chu Li's tricky and weird sword. She did not have the time to accumulate energy, but it was enough to make Chu Li struggle. Sun Mingwei did not show any mercy. She threw another divine light fist. Chu Li looked bitter. Sun Mingwei's divine light fist was so powerful not only because of her deep inner energy, but also because the divine light fist was so powerful. It was like the heavenly king palm, which amplified the power of her inner energy. Sun Mingwei did not need other antique studies. The divine light fist alone was simple enough. It was unstoppable. He swung his sword at lightning speed to meet the divine light fist. He used his sword technique to neutralize the force and devoured it with the cloud-slashing power. Even so, he was slightly injured after 3 punches. "Saint, have mercy!" Li Hanyin cried out hurriedly. Chu Li said, Han Yin, leave first. Li Han Yin stomped her feet and said angrily, Saint. Sun Mingyue said, You're a high official of the Holy Church of Light, but Chu Li isn't. If you spare his life, he'll become a high official too. Chu Li laughed and shook his head. You're daydreaming. Then you can die. Sun Mingyue threw another divine light fist. Chu Li suddenly stabbed the tip of his sword to meet the fist force. Like a fish swimming against the current, his speed became extremely fast, and he instantly approached Sun Mingyue. This sword was unusually exquisite. It was an ultimate move that could win by surprise. Usually, one move could decide life and death and turn the situation around. Sun Mingyue did not panic at his approach. She threw another divine light fist. She sighed to herself that he was courting death. Being hit by a divine light fist at such a close distance, no matter how exquisite his sword technique was, it would be useless. It would not be able to neutralize the fist force. When the two were only 2 steps away, Chu Li suddenly stretched out his left hand and used Philip's swift thunder. Sun Mingyue frowned. She felt a sense of danger. Her white, jade-like fist met it. Suddenly, her whole body went numb as if she heard thunder. The inner energy in her body flowed along the strange heart technique. When the tip of Chu Li's sword was about to pierce her chest, she gently flicked the tip of the sword with her finger. The sword was instantly deflected, and Chu Li was sent flying. Chu Li felt as if he was struck by lightning. He felt his whole body go numb. The force of Philip's swift thunder rolled back and hit him. Sun Mingyue flashed in front of him and punched his chest. Bam! Chu Li extended his palm. Sun Mingyue felt a strange force pushing her away. She could not help but take 2 steps back. She looked at Chu Li in shock. However, it did not affect her at all. She threw another divine light fist. Chu Li was in midair. He barely moved a foot to the side and avoided the divine light fist. After experiencing it for himself, he realized how powerful Sun Mingyue was. It was like a fight between an adult and a child. He had no chance of winning. Even a strange technique like Philip's swift thunder could not do anything to her. Sun Mingyue frowned. Her cultivation level was much higher than his, but she could not take him down in a short time. Chu Li was unusually slippery. His divine light fist could not hit its target and was blocked by his strange techniques. Bam! Sun Mingyue threw another 2 divine light fist. Chu Li could only avoid 1 punch in midair. He could not avoid the other one no matter what. He could only take it head-on and collided with the Heavenly King Palm. Chu Li was sent flying again. Fortunately, the Heavenly King Palm was mysterious and managed to block the force of the divine light fist. Sun Mingyue scoffed and appeared behind Chu Li in a flash. She threw another punch. Chu Li countered with another Heavenly King Palm. Bam! Chu Li was sent flying again. Sun Mingyue also took 2 steps back. She stopped her forward momentum. She felt that Chu Li's palm technique was strange. It was not an ordinary martial art. TSK. TSK. She suddenly waved her hands. 2 streams of light caught up to Chu Li. 2 flying blades were right in front of him. Chu Li had been guarding against this attack. However, he could not guard against it. He could only watch as the flying blades hit him. He could only dodge one of them. Sun Mingyue's light blade was about the same level as Chu Li's. However, her skill was more profound and powerful. Chu Li felt like his chest was hit by a big hammer. The speed at which he was sent flying increased. He spat out a mouthful of blood in midair. Bam! He landed heavily on the ground. Blood was still flowing from the corner of his mouth. Stop! Li Han Yin suddenly stood in front of him to block Sun Mingyue. Sun Mingyue frowned. High officially, Li Han Yin said, Saint, you can't kill Big Brother Chu. Chapter 1261. Chu Li said, Han Yin, please step aside. The Saint has finally managed to catch me today. She's determined to kill me. It's good that you know. Why struggle in vain? Can you escape? Sun Mingyue said. Chu Li shook his head and smiled. You're underestimating me, Saint. I might not be able to defeat you, but I can still escape with my life. Let's see if you can escape. Sun Mingyue sneered and appeared behind Chu Li in a flash. Her divine light fist instantly struck Chu Li. What she had hit was only a shadow. Chu Li disappeared from where he stood and reappeared behind Sun Mingyue, pressing his palm forward. Even in a time like this, he did not dare to reveal all of his abilities. The heavenly demonic power could not be revealed. She was experienced and knowledgeable, so she could not guarantee that she would not be able to tell the ins and outs of the heavenly demonic power. Therefore, she suspected that Chu Li and Zhao De were in contact. He could only use the cloud slashing power, the martial arts of Green Deer Cliff, and the martial arts of Amethyst Mountain. Fortunately, he knew the ins and outs of the divine light fist. Even if he was not proficient enough and could not completely dissolve the fist force, because he understood it, he would be able to reduce the damage. The two of them flashed and disappeared almost at the same time. They reappeared at the same time and then reappeared in different places. Chu Li always managed to avoid her sneak attacks, which made Sun Mingyue frown in confusion. Her body movement technique was already as fast as it could be, but she still could not catch Chu Li. There was something fishy about this. Even if Chu Li's body movement technique was top-notch, it was impossible for him to do this. The only explanation was that he possessed a secret skill that allowed him to see through her thoughts. She immediately shook her head and rejected it. The secret skill that she cultivated could prevent her thoughts from being spied on. Even if it was her master or an enlightened master in front of her, they would not be able to see through her thoughts. Chu Li was only a grandmaster. No matter how powerful he was, he would not be able to do it. Was it just a coincidence? Unconvinced, she attacked again, but Chu Li always managed to evade her attacks. Previously, when the 4 Buddhas and 1 demon operated at the same time, even though it almost caused him to collapse, it also greatly increased his mental strength. Moreover, when Sun Mingyue was in a life-and-death situation, his nature restoration manifestation had also improved to the next level. There seemed to be a glimmer of light that vaguely illuminated Sun Mingyue's thoughts, allowing Chu Li to sense where she was going to appear so that he could avoid her in time. Li Hanyin heaved a long sigh of relief. Initially, she thought that Chu Li would not be able to withstand more than a few blows. Judging from the situation just now, Sun Mingyue's cultivation level was far higher than Chu Li's. She did not expect that once they started fighting, they would be equally matched. For a moment, Sun Mingyue could not do anything to Chu Li. Chu Li said, "Saint, it's boring to go on like this. Why don't we work together?" He could sense Sun Mingyue's killing intent. It was obvious that she wanted to kill him right away and see if Zhao De would show up. In that case, the truth would come to light, and it would save him a lot of effort. It could be said that it was a clean and neat job. How do we cooperate? Sun Mingyue asked calmly. The two of them were still chasing each other, but Chu Li was always able to evade them one step ahead. Sun Mingyue had already understood that Chu Li could indeed read her thoughts. This made her even more vigilant, and her killing intent intensified. She wanted nothing more than to get rid of him as soon as possible. Chu Li said, "You want to kill the Divine Prophecy Pavilion's disciple, Zhuhua, right? Can you kill him?" Sun Mingyue asked. Chu Li disappeared in a flash and appeared 100 feet away in the next moment. He spoke again, "I can find him, but I can't kill him. However, it won't be difficult for the saint to kill him. So if we work together, we can definitely kill him." "How can you find him?" Sun Mingyue scoffed. "He's a disciple of the Prophecy Pavilion. He can predict when he's in danger, so the tracking technique won't work." She sighed inwardly. Chu Li lived up to his reputation. He was unusually cunning and cautious. She initially wanted to follow the sound of Chu Li's voice to find out where he was while he was talking, and then attack him when he was caught off guard. However, he was prepared for this. He closed his mouth as soon as he moved, and only spoke when his body stopped moving. Fortunately, this guy's martial arts was not as good as hers. If their martial arts were on par, she might not be able to defeat him. When she thought of this, her desire to kill Chu Li intensified. Previously, she only wanted to kill Chu Li to prove Zhao De's innocence. But now that she felt threatened by Chu Li, she had to nip the problem in the bud. She had to kill Chu Li as soon as possible to reduce the Holy Church of Light's losses. Otherwise, it would be cruel to the Holy Church of Light's disciples. Chu Li said, I have my ways. Saint, do you want to kill him? Of course, Sun Mingwe said. Between Chu Li and Zhu Hua, she wanted to kill Zhu Hua more. The Prophecy Pavilion's threat was not only in their martial arts, but also in their ability to pry into one's destiny. More importantly, their influence would affect the entire Holy Church of Light. If the rumor that she and the Holy Church of Light were enemies were spread, there would be endless trouble. One was a threat to the Holy Church of Light's disciples, and the other was a threat to her. Naturally, she had to solve her own problem first. Chu Li said, "How about we make a deal?" "Speak." Sun Mingwe scoffed. Chu Li said, "Saint, if you don't attack me, I'll help you kill Zhu Hua." "Your life in exchange for Zhu Hua's?" Sun Mingwe said coldly. "Are you begging me to spare your life?" Chu Li smiled. "You can say that. What do you think of this deal, Saint? Even if I don't attack, it doesn't mean the Holy Church of Light's disciples won't." Sun Mingwe scoffed. Her desire to kill Chu Li was even stronger. She was flexible, thick-skinned, and cunning. She was a huge threat to the Holy Church of Light. Chu Li said, "That doesn't matter. It's fine as long as you don't attack." "Fine," Sun Mingwe scoffed. As they spoke, their bodies kept flashing. Sun Mingwe wanted to take advantage of his carelessness and kill him when he made a mistake. She believed that even a wise man would make a mistake. Chu Li suddenly stopped. Sun Mingwe sped up and threw a punch. Chu Li hurriedly countered with a heavenly king palm. Bang! The fist and the palm collided. Both of them retreated. Sun Mingwe's body suddenly stiffened. The petrifying finger had silently caught up to her. She had already sensed danger, but Chu Li's heavenly king palm was exceptionally powerful. She could not control the force of her flight. She moved sideways but could not completely avoid the petrifying finger. Chu Li's retreating body suddenly disappeared. The next moment, he appeared beside Sun Mingwe and pointed with another petrifying finger. Sun Mingwe suddenly disappeared. The petrifying finger missed. She appeared behind Chu Li and threw a punch. Chu Li had already disappeared the moment the petrifying finger hit the air, avoiding the divine light fist. Both of them disappeared. When they reappeared, they were 100 feet apart. Sun Mingwe squinted her beautiful eyes. A bright light flashed in them, but it quickly disappeared. She said, "All right, you're qualified to make this deal." She wanted to plot against Chu Li, but Chu Li wanted to plot against her too. The two of them fought for another round. She sighed. She had almost fallen into Chu Li's trap. Although she had underestimated his martial arts and was careless, he was still a huge threat. From the looks of it, he could not be Zhao De. Zhao De was intelligent, but he was not as intelligent as Sun Mingwe. Chu Li sighed and shook his head. Not only was Sun Mingwe's cultivation level profound, but her martial arts were also profound. She was able to break the petrifying finger. No matter how capable he was, he felt that he was at his wit's end and could not do anything to her. "All right, let's make a move now," Chu Li said. Chapter 1262. She disappeared into the thin air. Li Hanyin let out a sigh of relief and smiled. Chu Li waved his hand. "I'll go back too. Be careful, Hanyin." Big Brother Chu. Li Hanyin thought he was going to continue pestering Sun Mingwe and kill her. Chu Li shook his head. "We'll talk about this later. Just be careful." He vanished with a wave of his hand. In the next moment, he appeared outside the formation and saw that Sun Mingwe was on the other side of the formation, walking into it. Chu Li flashed a few times and entered the formation before appearing in the cave. He had changed his clothes since he entered the formation and entered the cave. At the same time, he channeled the Earth Matrix and Reincarnation Scripture and the Life and Death Scripture, healing his injuries in the blink of an eye. He had just sat down when light footsteps were heard from outside. Sun Mingwe appeared in her fluttering white gown and looked at him coldly. Chu Li opened his eyes and looked at Sun Mingwe in confusion, as if wondering why she had suddenly appeared. Sun Mingwe frowned and stared at him to see if he was injured. Unfortunately, Chu Li seemed to be shrouded by a thin layer of mist. She could not see through his mind or body. However, through her observation, Chu Li did not show any signs of injury. She reached out and grabbed Chu Li's wrist. A faint fragrance drifted into his nose, but Chu Li did not have any thoughts. He frowned at Sun Mingwei. "Saint, what's wrong?" Sun Mingwei replied, "It depends on your cultivation level." Chu Li shook his head and sighed. "I'm still far from Zhuhua. I guess it'll be useless even if I cultivate in isolation for half a month. I'm afraid it'll take me decades, or even centuries to catch up to Zhuhua. It's really hopeless. I'll chase him even if it's hopeless," Sun Mingwei said while channeling. A sliver of inner energy entered Chu Li's body like a slithering snake. It flowed through his meridians and organs at an incredibly fast speed. In the blink of an eye, it had completed a full cycle. Chu Li could clearly see that he was not injured. She secretly sighed in relief. It seemed like it was indeed Zhu Hua's scheme to confuse one's mind. Chu Li and Zhao Dai were not the same person. Zhao Dai's organs were extremely healthy and showed no signs of injury. On the other hand, Chu Li's injuries were quite serious after taking a few punches from him, and he was merely putting up a strong front. No matter how powerful a spirit pill or medicine was, it would not be able to heal his injuries in an instant. Not even the mysterious Earth Matrix and Reincarnation Scripture. The Earth Matrix and Reincarnation Scripture could not heal injuries so quickly, but with the Life and Death Scripture, his recovery was miraculous. Chu Li freed his wrist and asked awkwardly, "Saint, did you just—" "Oh," Sun Mingwei asked. "How did you know?" Chu Li said, "It's filled with killing intent. It's quite scary." "Your senses are quite sharp," Sun Mingwei nodded. "I fought with Chu Li." Chu Li furrowed his brows. "I heard his name again. Zhu Hua said that I have something to do with him. What is it?" Of Chu opened his eyes, and Sun Mingwei couldn't help but laugh at his expression. She shook her head and said, "Although it's absurd, if you think about it carefully, there's a real possibility." "How is that possible?" Chu Li asked. "Both of you are the rising star of the younger generation. Both of you have excellent martial arts at such a young age," Mingwei said. Chu Li replied, "The Method King isn't that old either." "Why don't you say that Chu Li is the Method King?" "What a joke." Now that I think about it, it's ridiculous. How can you be the same person?" Mingwei shook her head. "Chu Li's cultivation level is higher than yours, and he is much more famous than you." "He's stronger than me?" Chu Li frowned. He had purposely made his cultivation level higher than Zhao Dai, so that Sun Mingwei would not let Zhao Dai kill Chu Li. Since his cultivation level was higher than Zhao Dai's, as long as Sun Mingwei did not want to kill Zhao Dai, she would not let him kill her. "How about this? You and Method King will kill Chu Li," Sun Mingwei said. Chu Li was annoyed that Sun Mingwei was better than him. Chu Li felt helpless, but he was eager to make a move. "Kill Chu Li? Chu Li is very cunning. You two are not enough. I'll send Priest Chung." Sun Mingwei said, "You must kill him no matter what." "Yes." Chu Li nodded slowly and said, "But there's no need for so many people. I alone will be enough." "You won't be able to kill him by yourself." Sun Mingwei shook her head. Chu Li was unconvinced. "Is he really that strong? His cultivation level is higher than yours, and he's smarter than you too," Sun Mingwei said. "You'll get a taste of it. Since the saint said so, it should be true." "All right then." Chu Li nodded reluctantly. "Go into isolated cultivation and be ready to move at any time." Sun Mingwei stood up and waved her hand before walking out. Chu Li sighed in relief after she left. Sun Mingwei had put a lot of pressure on him. Now that he had passed this hurdle, he had temporarily stabilized her. However, there was still the next hurdle. Fang Qingyang and another priest Chang Siyu were going to kill him together with him. This would be the biggest problem. He had to think about how to deal with it. He was afraid that Sun Mingwei would ask him and the two priests to ambush her and kill him after killing Zhu Hua. Sun Mingwei was capable of doing such a thing. Sun Mingwei was very afraid of him. After the two of them killed Zhu Hua, Sun Mingwei would not let him go. She would not do it herself, but she could ask her subordinates to do it and ambush him while he was off guard. He did not know the cloning skill. How could he kill himself? He frowned as he thought about this and thought of a countermeasure. He suddenly appeared beside Li Hanyin and nodded in satisfaction when he saw that she was meditating by the campfire. It was rare for her to calm down so quickly. Li Hanyin saw him and quickly asked, "Big Brother Chu, what's going on? We'll talk about it later. Circulate your energy first." Chu Li waved his hand. Li Hanyin glared at him in dissatisfaction. Chu Li smiled and was about to speak when a white robe flashed, and Sun Mingyue appeared again. Chu Li looked her up and down and smiled. "Saint, what did you change your clothes?" Sun Mingyue frowned. No one dared to be so presumptuous in front of her. Chu Li's eyes wandered unscrupulously on her body, and a smile appeared on his face. Her murderous intent grew stronger, but her expression was calm. "Let's go. Hanyin, return to Great Light Peak for now. When he returns, he'll escort you back." "There's no need for Big Brother Chu," Li Hanyin quickly said. Sun Mingyue said, "Prophecy Pavilion won't give up. They might continue to assassinate you. Don't distract them." Chu Li nodded slowly but looked deeply at Sun Mingyue. Sun Mingyue asked, "Are you afraid?" "I believe that the saint will keep her promise," Chu Li said. "As long as the saint doesn't make a move, Great Light Peak won't be able to trap me." "That's good," Sun Mingyue said. "Hanyin, go back." Li Hanyin looked at Chu Li with dissatisfaction. She felt that he was too careless. She could faintly feel the power of Great Light Peak. When she stepped into Great Light Peak, she was as insignificant as an ant and had no power to resist. Chapter 1263. Chu Li shook his head and laughed. "Hanyin, you're underestimating me. Go, go." "Big Brother Chu." Li Hanyin glared at him. Chu Li waved his hand. "I know what I'm doing. Go." Li Hanyin sighed helplessly when she saw him like this. "All right then." Li Hanyin was full of admiration for Chu Li and was confident that no one could defeat him. Even though Sun Mingyue defeated Chu Li, she was not able to do anything to him. This made her even more confident that all difficulties would not be a problem for Chu Li. Although she knew that the Great Light Peak was scary, she did not think that Chu Li would be a problem. Sun Mingyue smiled. "I'd like to see how you're going to pass the Great Light Peak." This was an open scheme to take advantage of Li Hanyin's admiration for Chu Li. She wanted to invite Li Hanyin to the Great Light Peak to see if Chu Li would back down. He knew that there was a tiger in the mountain, but he still chose to go there. He did not have the courage to blindly rely on conspiracies and opportunism to convince others. Chu Li sighed. "Saint, can we start now?" "Let's go," Sun Mingyue said. Chu Li glanced at Li Hanyin. She nodded, gave a fist salute, and left gracefully. After watching her graceful figure disappear, Sun Mingyue turned to look at Chu Li. "How do we catch up to Zhuhua?" "Follow me," Chu Li said. His figure fluttered as if he was riding the wind. Sun Mingyue followed closely behind. The two of them rushed forward without rest, and their speed became faster and faster. Chu Li could not expose his god's limbs, so he had to use this stupid method. Although Sun Mingyue felt that it was slow, she did not rush him. They ran from night until dawn when Chu Li suddenly stopped. They stopped outside a forest. The morning sun emitted thousands of rays of golden light, piercing through the forest. Chu Li frowned and looked at Sun Mingyue. "He's nearby, but there should be a formation here, so we'll have to search slowly." "What kind of tracking skill is that?" Sun Mingyue had been holding back and finally could not hold it in any longer. Chu Li said, "Heaven-man interaction. He was hit by my palm energy, so I can sense his location." He did not want to reveal his remarkable abilities, but he knew that she had definitely investigated him and knew of his abilities. Even if he wanted to hide it, he would not be able to do so. He might as well tell her frankly. The Heaven-man connection technique should be able to draw her attention away. "Oh," Sun Mingyue frowned and muttered to herself. She had never heard of this special skill. However, there were countless strange skills and special skills in the world. It was impossible to know all of them. Chu Li might have obtained this secret skill by chance. Its power was indeed shocking. Chu Li said, "He should be inside the formation." "What a pity," Sun Mingyue said indifferently. "There's no rush. I have a subordinate who is proficient in formations. Let him come over." "All right." Chu Li nodded, but he was feeling anxious. She was definitely looking for Zhao De. If that was the case, she would be exposed immediately. If he didn't want to be exposed, he had to get away as soon as possible and not appear in front of her. Otherwise, sooner or later, he would be exposed. With her intelligence, she could tell that something was wrong with a glance. He had also thought of finding an elder from heavenly demonic sect to disguise himself as Zhao De. Unfortunately, he had already fought with her. The elder from heavenly demonic sect could disguise himself as Chu Li, but it did not match his cultivation level. Sun Mingyue's senses were extremely sharp. It would be difficult to hide from her. As for asking the elder from heavenly demonic sect to disguise himself as Zhao De, it would be impossible to hide from Sun Mingyue. If it was someone else, or even a top-notch grandmaster, he could work together with the elder from heavenly demonic sect to hide his identity. Unfortunately, he was facing Sun Mingyue. Sun Mingyue's senses were as sharp as an enlightened master's, so he could not hide it. Chu Li took a deep breath and smiled. But I have a way to lure him out. Sun Mingyue looked at him thoughtfully and suddenly said, Chu Li, you know formations too, right? Chu Li was stunned for a moment before he smiled and nodded. I only know a little. I don't know much. This could not be hidden from Sun Mingyue. Hesitating would only make her suspicious. However, looking at her expression, she was probably already suspicious. Sun Mingyue looked at Chu Li thoughtfully. The art of formations was not something an ordinary person could master. It required enough talent. Zhao De could master formations because of Tian Luo's sect, but Chu Li had mastered formations too? How could things be so coincidental? Chu Li suddenly shouted, Zhu Hua, do you dare to fight me? He waved his hand and gestured for Sun Mingyue to hide. Sun Mingyue suddenly disappeared from where she stood. She had completely distanced herself from Chu Li and appeared 10 miles away to avoid the prophecy pavilion's detection. Chu Li roared again. Zhu Hua, do you only dare to hide in a formation like a turtle? A sneer suddenly rang out like a clap of thunder. Zhu Hua's blue robe fluttered as he appeared in front of him and lightly struck out with his palm. Zhu Hua's handsome face was extremely gloomy. His eyes were as sharp as swords. He wanted to stab Chu Li to death with his gaze. Chu Li's words aroused his endless killing intent. The prophecy pavilion had never suffered such a huge loss, especially when this brat killed Junior Sister Ding. He concluded that Chu Li was Zhao De, and Zhao De was Chu Li. Chu Li smiled. Aren't the disciples of the prophecy pavilion very powerful? How could you not predict that this is a trap? Umph. Zhu Hua sneered. So what if it's a trap? He sneered. A middle-aged man in a green robe came out of the formation and appeared in front of Chu Li. His body was as light as a feather. The two of them formed a pincer attack and slowly approached Chu Li. Chu Li scoffed. As expected of a disciple of the prophecy pavilion, you have great foresight. If you dare to come here, you must have helpers. Why don't you call them over? Zhu Hua sneered. Chu Li scoffed. That's right. Unfortunately, Sun Mingyue did not appear. He frowned secretly. Sun Mingyue was good. She wanted to trick him. She was destroying the bridge before crossing the river. Chu Li was killed by Zhu Hua and the middle-aged man and exhausted their energy. Since she found Zhu Hua, she was not afraid that he would escape. Once the two of them were defeated, she would kill Zhu Hua and the other middle-aged man. She would kill them all. What a wishful thinking. Chu Li turned around and left. Zhu Hua sneered. You're here and you still want to leave? He was secretly on guard, but immediately rushed toward Chu Li. The other middle-aged man rushed over as well. The middle-aged man looked ordinary and was not as handsome as Zhu Hua. However, his cultivation level was shocking and was comparable to Zhu Hua. Chu Li thought, no wonder the disciples of the prophecy pavilion are so arrogant. They really have an outstanding cultivation level. The prophecy pavilion has found the key to prosperity. Otherwise, their disciples would not have such a high cultivation level. It's no wonder they want to become one of the 8 major sections. The two of them combined their 9 kills palm energy and attacked Chu Li. Chu Li easily dodged it. The two of them attacked with their first palm, followed by their second. Palm after palm, it was continuous. Before the first force disappeared, the second force arrived. In a short while, Chu Li's surroundings were covered by the 9 kills palm energy. The palm energy was everywhere, and there was no way to avoid it. Chu Li shouted, "Saint, if you don't come out, I'm going to curse." However, the surroundings were empty. Sun Mingwei had not appeared. Chu Li shouted, "Saint." The surroundings were still empty. No one appeared. Zhu Hua sneered. "Playing tricks." Before he could finish his sentence, Sun Mingwei suddenly appeared behind him. Chapter 1264. Sun Mingwei clenched her fist and lightly punched toward Zhu Hua, intending to kill him with one punch. Bang! A slender palm suddenly appeared out of thin air and blocked her fist. Another middle-aged man emerged from the forest. His figure was as fast as a ghost, and he instantly stood in front of Zhu Hua, blocking the punch. Fist and palm collided. With a muffled sound, he flew backwards and crashed into Zhu Hua. The two of them flew out together in a sorry state. Sun Mingwei's punch seemed light and powerless, as if she was greeting an acquaintance, but it contained a strong inner force. If she wanted to kill Zhu Hua with one punch, she didn't need a second punch. Pooh! The middle-aged man and Zhu Hua both spat out an arrow of blood in the air. Their expressions immediately became dispirited, as if their spirits had been sucked out. The pressure on Chu Li was greatly reduced, and he was speechless. Sun Mingwei's divine light fist was unbelievably powerful, comparable to an enlightened master's attack. The more he thought about it, the more he realized how terrifying Sun Mingwei was. She was only a grandmaster, but she was able to unleash a power that was close to that of an enlightened master. It did not seem to be some sort of mystical technique, but she was able to unleash her profound cultivation level to the fullest. However, Chu Li knew that this was the essence of the Great Way. It might not seem like there was any mystical or ultimate skill involved, but it was actually a martial art that had been cultivated to an incomparably pure level. Then it was fused into extremely ordinary moves, returning to the basics. For example, the Divine Light Fist was the most commonly used martial art in the scripture of Great Light. All the disciples of the Holy Church of Light practiced it. Although it was powerful, it was impossible for them to reach her extreme state. When the remaining middle-aged man saw that Zhu Hua and Sun Mingwei had been sent flying, he began to attack Chu Li with all his might. He wanted to defeat Chu Li before Sun Mingwei could, so that he would have a chance at survival. Chu Li tried his best not to be knocked down, but he felt the sudden increase in pressure. He was barely able to withstand it. The middle-aged man's cultivation level was higher than his, and his attacks were ferocious. However, Chu Li's tenacity was astonishing, and he barely managed to hold on and not be knocked down. Sun Mingwei suddenly disappeared. Zhu Hua and the other man staggered 2 steps after landing on the ground, almost falling down. Blood gushed out from their mouths, but they did not have time to heal their injuries. They were on guard against another sneak attack from her, their bodies tensed up, ready to strike at any time. However, Sun Mingwei did not appear for a long time. It was as if she had suddenly left. Chu Li was stunned, and his expression changed drastically. Sun Mingwei wanted to use the 3 of them to deal with him first. Thinking of this, he turned around and left, wanting to escape before the 3 of them could react. A green shadow flashed and blocked in front of him. Zhu Hua and the other 2 reacted quickly and surrounded him. Zhu Hua's reaction was the fastest. He immediately struck out with his palm energy, and the other 2 middle-aged men struck at the same time. They had great teamwork, and the pressure on Chu Li increased sharply. He frowned as he made his move. His mind raced as he tried to think of a way out. It seemed like Sun Mingwei was determined to kill him. If he wanted to escape, he could only execute his god's feat. Although he could escape this way, he would have come here for nothing. Chu Li was not willing to accept this. He would not take this step unless he had no other choice. He had to find a better way. Bang! His body suddenly stopped, and then he was hit by the 3 palm energies. With a muffled sound, he was sent flying. The Earth Matrix and Reincarnation Scripture circulated rapidly, transforming the power of the 9 kills palm. At the same time, he spat out a mouthful of blood. His face turned as pale as paper, and his eyes dimmed. It was as if he had been heavily injured by the 3 palm strikes. Zhu Hua moved like lightning and appeared in front of Chu Li in an instant, pressing his palm down again. Chu Li was sent flying like a broken puppet, and he rolled in the air. Bang, 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 bang. Zhu Hua chased after him, and his palms formed a phantom that continuously hit Chu Li, trying to beat him into a pile of meat paste. Chu Li kept spitting out blood, and the blood he spat out was mixed with pieces of meat. Obviously, his internal organs were crushed, and he was completely dead. Bang! Chu Li finally landed on the ground, and he pointed at Zhu Hua unwillingly. Then, his expression froze, and his eyes were like extinguished candlelight. There was no light, and he breathed his last. The life and death scripture circulated, and his entire body entered a state of nirvana, which was no different from death. At this point, he could only take this risky step, seeking life and death, and seeking wealth and danger. The 3 disciples of the prophecy pavilion felt that he was completely dead and disappeared from the world. His soul was also destroyed, and he could not enter reincarnation. This was the power of the 9 kills palm. The 3 disciples of the prophecy pavilion smiled. Ha! Zhu Hua suddenly laughed. Ha 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 ha! Junior Sister Ding, Junior Sister Ding, did you see that? He laughed crazily, and he was unbridled. The 2 middle-aged men shook their heads and sighed, and secretly sympathized with Zhu Hua. Sun Mingyue suddenly appeared, and glanced at Chu Li on the ground. She said lightly, "Kill him, and your mission is complete. It's time for you to accompany him." As soon as she finished speaking, she suddenly appeared beside Zhu Hua, and her divine light fist had already arrived. Zhu Hua did not dare to take it head-on and dodge sideways. However, Sun Mingyue's body movement technique was faster, and the second punch had already arrived. Zhu Hua wanted to dodge, but it was too late, and he could only take it head-on. Bang! It was like a muffled thunder between the two. Zhu Hua flew straight out, and he spat out an arrow of blood in the air. He sped up to escape. Bang! Sun Mingyue appeared again, and hit him again. Zhu Hua flew up again, but his body was limp in the air, as if his bones were taken out. Then, with a bang, he landed firmly on the ground and stopped moving. He died. The remaining 2 middle-aged men saw this and roared in anger. They combined their palms to hit Sun Mingyue at an incredible speed. Sun Mingyue scoffed and directly punched. Bang! In the muffled sound, Sun Mingyue stood steadily, but the 2 middle-aged men took a few steps back, and their bodies were unstable. The 2 men were shocked, and in a blur, Sun Mingyue was already behind them, and each of them punched. Bang! Bang! The 2 men's bodies were unstable, and they could not dodge in time. They could only use their palms to block, and were sent flying by the divine light fist. Sun Mingyue was calm, and again punched. 2 divine light fists caught up with the 2 men and hit their bodies solidly. Bang! Bang! The 2 men suddenly exploded into 2 clouds of blood mist, and not even their bones were left. She did not look at the 2 men and glided to Zhu Hua. She calmly looked at Zhu Hua, who was no longer breathing, and gently shook her head. Although Zhu Hua's cultivation level was high, he could not withstand a single blow. The prophecy pavilion's disciple was still lacking, and it was difficult for him to enter the 8 major sections. She slowly walked to Chu Li and no longer paid attention to Zhu Hua. The divine light fist's level was profound, and it had the effect of destroying souls. Not only did Zhu Hua die, but his soul was also destroyed. Even if he took a spirit medicine that could bring the dead back to life, it would be useless. His soul was destroyed, and he could not return to life, so there was no need to decapitate him to ensure his death. She stared at Chu Li's face, and her expression was somewhat complicated. Chu Li was already stiff, and in just a moment, he was completely dead. Obviously, Zhu Hua and the others' antique study also had the effect of destroying souls, and Chu Li had no chance to return to life. Although he was an enemy, she still felt a trace of regret that such a hero had died because of her plot. He was supposed to be a person who shone brightly, and his most brilliant life had not yet arrived. Like a flower that had withered before it could bloom, it was really a pity. Unfortunately, he was an enemy, not a friend, or else she would definitely help him. Chapter 1265. After Sun Mingwe disappeared, the surroundings became quiet and time seemed to freeze. The two middle-aged men had disappeared and turned into a bloody mist that fell to the ground. It had already turned dark red. Chu Li and Zhu Hua, who were lying on the ground, were 200 feet apart. They were motionless, as if they had merged with the dust. Dust to dust, dust to dust. He was truly dead. Time passed slowly. After a quarter of an hour, Chu Li slowly opened his eyes. He used the omniscient mirror and saw the situation clearly. It seemed that he had made the right bet. Sun Mingwe was indeed proud and arrogant. She did not cut off his head and left him here. He saw Zhu Hua, who was motionless, as if he was dead. Zhu Hua was no different from a dead man. It did not look like he was pretending at all. However, Chu Li believed that Zhu Hua's death was fake. He had previously decided to fake his death because he had predicted that Zhu Hua would do so. His goal was not only to kill Zhu Hua and solve this big problem. He was greedy and wanted more secret skills. The one that he coveted the most was the secret skill that allowed him to freely pass through formations. Unfortunately, Ding Ruijia did not have this secret skill. He guessed that Zhu Hua might have it, and Zhu Hua could perform this secret skill. The price of performing this secret skill was his lifespan. However, he still wanted to get it. He was willing to sacrifice a few years of his lifespan to save his life. It was extremely precious. Getting rid of Sun Mingwe's pursuit and the Holy Church of Light's pursuit, as well as the crisis of his identity as Zhao Dai, could be completely explained away by dying. This time, his fake death could be said to be killing two birds with one stone. However, the risk was also great. If Sun Mingwe still wanted to stab him and cut off his head, then he would really be dead. He had a good grasp of Sun Mingwe's character, but there was still a great risk. Fortunately, he was lucky and did not make a mistake. He floated up and showed the wonders of the life and death scripture. After dying once, it was as if he had entered a reincarnation cycle. His old injuries were gone, and his body was full of vitality. He appeared beside Zhu Hua and reached out to pat him a few times. Zhu Hua's body was stiff, but Chu Li did not give up. Unfortunately, once he died, his meridians would be hidden, and he could not completely destroy his martial arts. Fortunately, Sun Mingwe's previous 2 punches had broken his meridians and crushed his internal organs. Even if he came back to life, he would not be able to do anything for a while. Sun Mingwe suddenly appeared at the Great Light Peak. Just as she was about to go to the cave, she suddenly stopped and turned her head to look in the direction of the Divine Light Basilica. Then, in a flash, she returned to the Divine Light Basilica. Inside the Light Palace, Fang Qingyang was standing in front of 2 middle-aged men, preventing them from leaving. "Xiao Fang, stop messing around," a round-faced middle-aged man said in a deep voice. "You know that the saint has ordered High officially to stay at the Great Light Peak, but he left without permission. This is against the saint's order. Of course, we can't just sit back and watch." Fang Qingyang shook his head and said, "It's just that she was too impatient and left earlier. She's a high official, not a prisoner. The saint invited her here to meet her, not to imprison her. Since she's left, we'll meet again next time." "Xiao Fang, don't play dumb," the square-faced middle-aged man said coldly. "Although she's a high official, the saint has forced her to come to the Great Light Peak. Naturally, there must be a deeper meaning to it. Although it's not to imprison her, it's more like it." Fang Qingyang shook his head. "There's a rule in the cult that we can't be rude to the high priests." "Although we can't be rude to the high priests, Li Hanyin is an exception," the square-faced middle-aged man said coldly. "Think about how many of our disciples she's killed. Elder Lu, you're still holding a grudge." Fang Qingyang scoffed. "I'm not that petty. Elder Lu, you're still holding a grudge against Patrol Lu, aren't you?" The square-faced middle-aged man snorted coldly and remained silent, obviously admitting to it. Fang Qingyang said, Patrol Lu has only reached the Great Light Realm. Elder Lu, you don't have to be too sad. If Li Hanyin doesn't have anything on her, I'll ignore her. If she does, I won't let her get away with it. The square-faced middle-aged man said in a deep voice. Fang Qingyang said, This doesn't count as anything, does it? Xiao Fang, you're bewitched. The square-faced middle-aged man shook his head. The round-faced middle-aged man sighed. Xiao Fang, if the saint blames you, can you bear it? I'll bear it. Fang Qingyang said. Sun Mingyue suddenly appeared and said coldly, What are you going to bear? The saint. The three of them quickly fist saluted. Sun Mingyue said coldly, Li Hanyin ran away? Fang Qingyang said, She left early. How dare she? Sun Mingyue said lightly. Fang Qingyang quickly said, The saint, she's in a difficult position. On one side is the Holy Church. On the other is Chu Li. Sun Mingyue waved her hand. Go, catch up with her and escort her back. The saint. Fang Qingyang was stunned. Sun Mingyue said, It's rare that she's a loyal person. Now that Chu Li is dead, comfort her. Chu Li is dead? Fang Qingyang asked. Sun Mingyue nodded. I think Li Hanyin will hate the Holy Church. Tell her that she killed the patrol and we killed Chu Li. It's nothing out of the ordinary. She's also a high official of the Holy Church. As long as she understands this, she can come back. I'm just afraid. Fang Qingyang sighed. Chu Li is her benefactor. Do as you see fit. Sun Mingyue said, I don't want to kill her. Whether she lives or dies depends on you. Yes. Fang Qingyang's heart was heavy as he slowly nodded. Sun Mingyue waved her hand. The three of them left the Divine Light Basilica. In a flash, Sun Mingyue appeared outside the formation at the top of the mountain and slowly walked inside. She suddenly felt hesitant. If Zhao De was not in the cave, it would mean that Zhao De and Chu Li were the same person. Although she did not believe it and was certain that they were not the same person, she still felt a little hesitant. She could not see through Chu Li or Zhao De, so she could not completely relax. After taking a deep breath, she walked inside again and soon reached the outside of the cave. There was no movement inside. She frowned. Zhao De. There was still no response from inside. Her heart sank. She took a few more steps forward and pushed open the door of the stone room. She finally saw Chu Li on the bed. Chu Li's eyes were closed, and he was motionless. He seemed to be in a meditative state. Sun Mingyue appeared in front of the bed in a flash and placed her hand on Chu Li's wrist. An extremely weak, thin thread of inner energy entered and circled around his wrist. She then let go of her hand and smiled. His internal organs were healthy and uninjured. His meridians were also full of vitality. It was obvious that his inner energy had improved. The Chu Li she saw before was seriously injured and on the verge of death. Even if he consumed spirit medicine and had amazing recovery abilities, he would need at least a month to recover. However, Zhao De was now healthy and strong. He was at the peak of his cultivation. A smile appeared on her face. She was finally completely relieved. This Zhu Hua was truly vicious to create such rumors. It was good that he died. She immediately thought of Chu Li. Her smile faded, and she felt a little pity. She did not disturb Chu Li's cultivation and glided away. Chu Li suddenly disappeared from the cave and appeared next to Zhu Hua. Zhu Hua had woken up and was about to enter the formation. He staggered and looked like he would fall at any time. Chu Li knew that he had consumed spirit medicine. Although he was seriously injured, he could still walk. Otherwise, he would not be able to move at all. Chapter 1266. Chu Li followed behind him silently, following his footsteps. The two were only one step apart. Chu Li was like a shadow. The life and death scripture concealed Chu Li's aura, and with Zhu Hua's martial arts being crippled, his senses were no longer sharp. He did not notice Chu Li, who was just inches away. Chu Li followed Zhu Hua into the formation and saw a valley. The valley had clear water and green trees. It was a good place to rest and live in seclusion. There were 3 small courtyards in the valley. They were empty at the moment. The valley was quiet. Zhu Hua panted as he entered his courtyard. and sat by the stone table in the courtyard. He grabbed a small purple lacquer box from under the stone table and was about to open it. The purple lacquer box suddenly flew up and left his hand. Zhu Hua turned to look. Chu Li stood behind him, looking at the purple lacquer box in his hand. Zhu Hua's face suddenly darkened. Chu Li, he was not surprised that Chu Li had woken up. He could play dead. So could Chu Li. Chu Li asked, "What is this?" Zhu Hua said coldly, "What are you doing?" Chu Li already knew from his mind that the purple lacquer box before him contained a spirit pill for martial arts recovery, primary heaven pill. Chu Li said, "You have a secret skill to enter and exit the formation, right?" "What secret skill?" Zhu Hua frowned. He knew which secret skill Chu Li was talking about, Davis shedding skill. Chu Li said, "This secret skill requires the basic heart technique of the prophecy pavilion." Zhu Hua said coldly, "You disguised yourself as Zhao Dai and entered the Holy Church of Light. You're quite capable. How did you do it? Seems like it's not necessary." Chu Li nodded in satisfaction. "Where did you hide this secret skill?" Zhu Hua scoffed and sneered. "In the world today, the best disguise is the heavenly demonic sect. You're not a disciple of the heavenly demonic sect, are you?" Chu Li was secretly shocked, his killing intent surging. He must not let this guy escape. If his identity as a disciple of the heavenly demonic sect was exposed, the impact would be huge. Chu Li pondered, why did the disciples of the prophecy pavilion improve by leaps and bounds? What's the secret? He was very interested in the sudden growth of the pavilion of heavenly mysteries, feeling that it was unusual. The disciples of the pavilion of heavenly mysteries were able to peer into the fates of others, even their own fates. He felt that the pavilion of heavenly mysteries' fate-peaking art was indeed terrifying when used against enemies, but it was even more terrifying when used to strengthen oneself. Being able to see the fortuitous encounters of others and snatch them away in advance was the most terrifying aspect of peeking into one's fate. The strength of the disciples of the Pavilion of Heavenly Mysteries had increased tremendously in the past 100 years, and they were now comparable to the 8 great sects of the Great Food Dynasty. This was not just because of the profound mental cultivation method of the Pavilion of Heavenly Mysteries. More importantly, it was because of their fortuitous encounters. It was obvious that they had encountered some sort of fortuitous encounter to become like this. Right now, he had an extreme thirst for power. He was utterly defeated by Sun Mingwei and almost lost his life. He was extremely sullen and wanted nothing more than to immediately take revenge. "What do you mean?" Zhu Hua frowned. Chu Li smiled. "Your divine intelligence pavilion is getting stronger and stronger. It can't be that your heart technique is superior, right?" "Of course." Zhu Hua scoffed. "Our mental cultivation method is of the same origin as the stargazing pavilion. In fact, it's even better than the stargazing pavilion." Chu Li said, "There's something wrong with your heaven heart technique. It doesn't have that much power." He believed in the judgment of Mahavirokana Buddha, so he had never cultivated the heaven heart technique. Zhu Hua sneered. "That's because you've obtained a secret manual." Chu Li raised his eyebrows. "Looks like you've done something to the secret manual." "That's right," Zhu Hua said proudly. "If all martial arts are to fall into the secret manual, wouldn't it be like giving away a knife? Who would be so stupid?" In the Pavilion of Heavenly Mysteries, the more important a martial art was, the more it had to be kept secret. However, in order to prevent the inheritance from being lost, it was still recorded in the secret manual. Moreover, it could be slowly studied, which was greatly beneficial to one's cultivation. However, the secret manual often had traps that outsiders did not know about. Once they obtained the secret manual and cultivated according to it, they would suffer. Chu Li said, "I don't think the other sects are that vicious." Recording in the secret manual was not only for the sake of teaching disciples, but also for the sake of continuous inheritance. If there were traps hidden in the secret manual, it would be too late to say anything if one died, and the sect inheritance would really be lost. Therefore, leaving a trap in the secret manual was a double-edged sword. Not all sects would use it. That's because it's not the truly important secret manual. Zhu Hua gave him a sidelong glance. Don't tell me you've obtained the secret manual of the Pavilion of Heavenly Mysteries and cultivated according to it? He said with a gloating smile, as if mocking Chu Li's stupidity. Chu Li frowned at him. Zhu Hua smiled. The true Heavenly Heart technique is shockingly powerful. It's the foundation of the Pavilion of Heavenly Mysteries prosperity. Chu Li shook his head and laughed. What about the Deva shedding technique? Is there something strange about your secret manual? Zhu Hua frowned at him and closed his eyes. Although the true Heavenly Heart technique was powerful, to say that it was the foundation of the Pavilion of Heavenly Mysteries prosperity was an exaggeration. It was to cover up the truth. The reason for the Pavilion of Heavenly Mysteries prosperity was a type of spirit herb, a type of spirit pill that could enhance one's cultivation level. Chu Li's heart skipped a beat. His eyes were burning. This was what he desired. Chu Li said, "The Pavilion of Heavenly Mysteries is really at the Cloud Dream Mountain?" "That's right." Zhu Hua opened his eyes and sized Chu Li up. "Do you want to seek revenge at the Pavilion of Heavenly Mysteries? If I kill you, the Pavilion of Heavenly Mysteries will definitely seek revenge." Chu Li shook his head. Rather than passively defending, it's better to take the initiative to attack. I'll destroy the nest of the Pavilion of Heavenly Mysteries first. Let's see how arrogant you can be then. Zhu Hua laughed. His laughter grew louder and louder until it turned into laughter. Destroy the Pavilion of Heavenly Mysteries, ha ha ha. Chu Li did not care about his laughter at all. He said calmly, "The Pavilion of Heavenly Mysteries soaring grass is at the Cloud Dream Mountain, right?" Zhu Hua's laughter stopped abruptly. He stared at him in shock. Chu Li smiled. "It seems like it really is at the Cloud Dream Mountain. How do you know about the soaring grass?" Zhu Hua could not hide his shock. The soaring grass was the Pavilion of Heavenly Mysteries' greatest secret. It must not be leaked. Otherwise, it would be a great crisis for the Pavilion of Heavenly Mysteries. The disciples of the Pavilion of Heavenly Mysteries would never divulge it. They had kept it a secret all these years. When they truly became one of the 8 major factions, they did not have to worry about it being leaked. However, they did not expect the soaring grass to be leaked. Chu Li smiled. "Where's the soaring grass? How do you know about the soaring grass?" Zhu Hua glared at him. He wanted nothing more than to pry open his mouth with a knife. Chu Li said, "I guessed." Zhu Hua's eyes widened. He gritted his teeth. "Did you sneak into the Pavilion of Heavenly Mysteries?" He was also a top-notch intelligent person. He immediately guessed that since Chu Li could disguise himself and enter the Holy Church of Light, it was not impossible for him to sneak into the Pavilion of Heavenly Mysteries. Zhu Hua's body turned cold at the thought. Chu Li smiled. "The Pavilion of Heavenly Mysteries has tight security. I haven't sneaked in. Don't worry. However, I'm very curious about the soaring grass. Can you tell me where it is?" "No," Zhu Hua said coldly. He stared at Chu Li dubiously. Even if he did not sneak in earlier, it was obvious that he wanted to sneak in by asking so many questions. If he could really sneak in, it would be a great crisis for the Pavilion of Heavenly Mysteries. Chapter 1267. Then how do I break the Cloud Dream Mountains formation? How do I get in and out? Chu Li asked. Zhu Hua sneered and was too lazy to answer. Sigh. Chu Li sighed. "If that's the case, I'll send you on your way." He already knew the location of the soaring grass from Zhu Hua's mind. His desire to kill Zhu Hua grew stronger to prevent any accidents. It was impossible to guard against this kind of person who could peek into fate. The sooner he died, the better. Then he suddenly threw a punch. Bang! Zhu Hua extended his palm and flew backward. He suddenly stretched his body in the air and flew diagonally. He wanted to use Chu Li's fist force to perform his light body technique. He smiled. Although he was heavily injured, as long as he hid in the formation, Chu Li would not be able to do anything. He would not have the chance to continue fighting. Chu Li shook his head. He knew what Zhu Hua was thinking. In a flash, he disappeared and appeared beside Zhu Hua. Another divine light fist was thrown out. Zhuhua flew backward with a bang. He closed his eyes unwillingly and died. A cold light flashed on Chu Li's waist. Zhuhua's head was separated from his body. He could not be revived even if he had a secret skill. He then walked out of the small courtyard and arrived in front of the stone wall at the end of the valley. He patted the moss-covered stone wall a few times, and with a rumbling sound, a cave as tall as a person was revealed, emitting a faint fragrance. There was no warning. Chu Li did not avoid the fragrance. He took a light breath and smiled. He floated into the cave. After walking for 100 meters, he came to a round stone room. The fragrance was getting stronger. There was a small round pool in the middle of the stone room. It was cold, and there was a huge lotus floating in the middle of the cold pool. The green lotus leaves almost occupied half of the pool. The lotus was the size of a basin. It was white and flawless. It emitted a faint fragrance. He knew it was the snow lotus at first glance. The snow lotus was a rare spirit herb. It was said to be extinct. He did not expect to see it here. With the snow lotus, the efficacy of his wind speed pill and giant spirit pill would increase tenfold. The wind speed pill and giant spirit pill were no longer effective. However, he could continue to consume the snow lotus to strengthen his body. It was also very beneficial to the growth of his cultivation level. Smelling the fragrance, it was almost ripe. His luck was extremely good. If he had been a little later, the serene snow lotus would have already been consumed by them. He decided to move the serene snow lotus to his own island. He looked into the cold pond. The pond water under the lotus leaves was so clear that he could see the bottom. At the bottom of the pond, clumps of dark blue grass swayed gently along with the pond water. It was extremely beautiful. Chi! With a soft whistling sound, a black shadow instantly shot towards Chu Li's eyes. The chilly air hit him in the face at incredible speed. Chu Li flicked his finger. Bang! Amidst the muffled sound of thunder, the black shadow softly fell to the ground. It was a little snake the size of a little finger. This little snake appeared abruptly, and its speed was strangely fast. It was truly impossible to guard against. Chu Li used Philip's swift thunder to paralyze it. Just as the small snake was about to move, Chu Li launched another petrifying finger at it. Following that, the sword flashed by his waist, and the small snake was decapitated. The snake's skin was unusually tough. If the petrifying finger had not solidified its vitality and caused its protective force to disappear, the modesty sword would not have been able to cut it. Chu Li was not in a hurry to touch the serene snow lotus. He first searched the stone room and soon found 3 stone boxes. Inside were 3 secret manuals. One was the Deva shedding technique, while the other 2 were the heavenly heart technique and the heaven peering technique. He quickly flipped through the 3 secret manuals and finally stopped at the heavenly heart technique. He frowned in silence. This heavenly heart technique was the same as Ding Ruijia's. He also felt danger. However, he knew from Zhuhua that the heavenly heart technique had to be read in reverse. One had to start from the back before cultivating the front. Otherwise, one would definitely go astray. The power of the real heavenly heart technique was indeed extraordinary. The key was that after cultivating the heavenly heart technique, one would be able to feel the state of the integration of heaven and man. Their senses would become sharper, and it would be beneficial to pry into the secrets of heaven and destiny. Chu Li smiled. Cultivating the heavenly heart technique would definitely be of great help to the nature restoration manifestation. He touched the heaven peering technique again. Without cultivating the heavenly heart technique, one would not be able to cultivate the heaven peering technique. However, after cultivating the heavenly heart technique, one could cultivate the heaven peering technique. The heaven peering technique could pry into the secrets of heaven and destiny. It could be said that it was the reason why the Divine Design Pavilion was unique. He then set his eyes on the 3rd secret manual, the Deva shedding technique. The Deva shedding technique did not require the heavenly heart technique, but it did indeed use one's lifespan as the price. In terms of breaths, 1 breath would consume 1 day of lifespan. 10 breaths would consume 10 days. Chu Li calculated and felt that the price was not considered high. Leaving a formation would only take 10 breaths at most. 10 days of lifespan would be enough. However, he did not know why Ding Wages spent so much time. She probably did it on purpose to ascend to heaven as soon as possible. However, something like lifespan should not be consumed if it was possible. An inch of gold could not buy an inch of time. You should not use the Deva shedding technique unless it was absolutely necessary. He kept the 3 secret manuals and disappeared from the cave. After exiting the formation, he instantly returned to the public houses island. Shui was cultivating. She wore a white tunic, and her face was as white as jade. Her whole body exuded a cold aura. Seeing him appear, Shui stopped and went forward to greet him. Master. Chu Li said, I want to build a cold pond. Is there a place? A cold pond? Shui was stunned. A pond of extreme, and extreme cold. It's used to grow spirit herbs, Chu Li said. Shui thought for a while and said, there's a bamboo forest in the northwest corner. There's a cold spring there. It's bone-chilling. Let's go take a look, Chu Li said. The two of them left his courtyard and came to a green bamboo forest in the northwest corner of the island. The bamboo forest rustled. A gust of wind blew, making a rustling sound. Chu Li nodded in admiration. Good place. Shui pursed her lips and smiled brightly. She personally supervised the construction of the island. The bamboo forest was planted by her. The island was full of spiritual energy. The flowers and trees were full of vitality. It was easy to survive and flourish. There were sceneries everywhere on the island. Every step was a different scenery. They were all meticulously created by the master craftsman. However, Chu Li did not have the leisure to play around. Instead, it was Shui who frequently patrolled and was very familiar with the place. Master, what do you think of this cold spring? Shui pointed at a pond. This pond was twice the size of the one in Zhuhua Valley. The spring water kept surging, and the top of the pond emitted a cold air. The pond water was drawn out to form a small stream. It was like a thin ribbon that passed through the bamboo forest. Chu Li smiled in satisfaction. Then, he moved the stones and threw down a few pieces of jade to form a lunar formation. It condensed the cold energy and imitated the environment where the snow lotus grew. In this way, in addition to the abundant spiritual energy on the island, the snow lotus would be able to take root. His life and death scripture could shorten the growth time of the snow lotus by half. It would mature again in 2 years and could be used to refine a batch of spirit pills. He nodded in satisfaction and suddenly disappeared. When he reappeared, he moved the snow lotus over. In the following days, he refined 2 cauldrons of pills. He refined another batch of wind speed pills and giant spirit pills. Then he took 3 wind speed pills and 3 giant spirit pills in one go. His speed and strength increased greatly. His strength suddenly increased, but he knew that he was still a distance away from Sun Mingwei. With his current ability, he still could not defeat Sun Mingwei. If he wanted to take revenge, he had to think of a way to get the soaring grass and flying pill from the Divine Design Pavilion. If he could take the flying pill, his cultivation level could increase greatly. He might be able to defeat Sun Mingwei. He could not wait to find Sun Mingwei for revenge. Therefore, he could not wait to go to the Divine Design Pavilion. Chapter 1268. The setting sun dyed the white snow between heaven and earth a rose color. Everything was enveloped in the white snow. A heavy snowfall had just fallen, and the branches drooped under the weight of the snow. A bonfire had been lit in a pine forest. Li Hanyan was sitting quietly in front of the bonfire, staring at the dancing flames without saying a word. Fang Qingyang sat beside her with a solemn expression on his face. Miss Li, Chu Li is indeed dead. Fang Qingyang sighed. My condolences. Li Hanyan smiled faintly and shook her head as she stared at the bonfire. Fang Qingyang was surprised to see her so calm. He thought that after bringing the bad news, Li Hanyan would break down and be in extreme pain, needing his comfort. Li Hanyan's admiration for Chu Li was deep in her bones. He was extremely jealous but helpless. He never expected that after hearing the news, Li Hanyin would be so calm as if she did not hear it. He could not help but repeat it. Li Hanyin was still calm. Fang Qingyang frowned. Miss Li, you don't believe it? Big brother Chu won't die. Li Hanyin shook her head. Fang Qingyang said, the saint saw it with her own eyes and brought the news back personally. It was 3 masters from the prophecy pavilion who killed Chu Li. Although the saint wanted to save him, she couldn't make it in time and could only avenge him. Li Hanyin shook her head. Big brother Chu won't die. Fang Qingyang looked at her helplessly. If she did not believe what he said, then there was nothing he could do. It was not that she did not believe it, but she refused to believe it and could not accept it. At this thought, he felt pity for her and sighed. How can a saint lie? Chu Li won't appear again. He's so young, but he has such a cultivation level. It's a pity that he's dead. Li Hanyin turned her head and frowned at him. The saint might not have seen it clearly. Big brother Chu won't die. Fang Qingyang shook his head. All right, he won't die. Miss Li, it's too dangerous for you to travel alone. Li Hanyin smiled faintly. I'm not weak. Priest, you don't have to send me off. This is the saint's order. I can't disobey. Fang Qingyang smiled. I hope Miss Li won't make things difficult for me. Forget it. Send me off if you want, Li Hanyin said. She looked at the bonfire quietly, but her mind was thinking about Fang Qingyang's news. She was very confident in Chu Li and felt that she would not be able to kill him under any circumstances. Not only was his martial arts superb, but he was also extraordinarily intelligent, far more so than an average person's. Even if the saint had a high cultivation level, she might not necessarily be smarter than him. She was sure that she would have a way to escape. Let me get you something to eat, Fang Qingyang said helplessly when he saw that she was ignoring him. Li Hanyin nodded lightly. Fang Qingyang fluttered away and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Li Hanyin suddenly turned her head and looked back. Chu Li was already standing behind her. Li Hanyin was overjoyed and was about to speak. Chu Li waved his hand. Big brother Chu? Li Hanyin floated closer to him and whispered, Are you okay? Chu Li shook his head. I'm pretending to be dead this time. I'm here to inform you in advance so that you won't act too aggressively and cause trouble. Li Hanyin furrowed her brows and scoffed. Did the saint strike? Chu Li smiled. She didn't do it herself, but it's inevitable for her to trip me up. Forget it. Don't get involved in my business with her. Do your job as a high official. Do I really have to be a high official? Li Hanyin frowned and said unhappily, I don't want to work for the Holy Church of Light. You need more training. Chu Li said, How else can you improve your martial arts? He realized that Li Hanyin's comprehension was amazing, but this kind of comprehension could only be unleashed in actual combat. Every time she fought, she would gain a lot and improve further. Chu Li's cultivation progress was far behind hers. Chu Li felt that Li Hanyin was the real genius. With proper training, she could become a top-notch master. Being a high official of the Holy Church of Light was an excellent opportunity. Li Hanyin scoffed, I don't feel comfortable staying in the Holy Church of Light. I won't let you come to the Ji dynasty. The Ji dynasty and the other countries are enemies. There's no need to be so timid. Chu Li said, You should improve your cultivation level as soon as possible. All right. Li Hanyin nodded. Chu Li waved his hand and suddenly disappeared. When he appeared in the imperial residence of King Yin, he saw Xiao Shi sitting in the gazebo in a daze, staring at Xiao Qi, who was practicing her sword. The sword gleam around Xiao Qi was like rippling water, refreshing and refreshing. Both of them were dressed in white. Their beautiful faces were like jade, radiant and enchanting. They were so beautiful that people could not look at them directly. Chu Li appeared beside Xiao Shi. Xiao Shi felt it and turned to glance at him. She immediately rolled her eyes at him. Chu Li crippled her heavenly heart technique last time. She had been depressed about it. She was very dissatisfied and did not give him a good look. Chu Li smiled and sat opposite her. Xiao Shi turned to avoid him and did not look at him. Chu Li smiled. I found the cultivation method of the heavenly heart technique. Xiao Shi cast a sidelong glance at him, then looked elsewhere and ignored him. Chu Li sighed. It seems that the second lady does not want to know. Forget it then. Hurry up and tell me. Xiao Shi scolded. Chu Li said, "The secret manual of the heavenly heart technique should be cultivated in reverse. Why are you practicing backwards? Start from a 6th level, then the 5th level, and the last level is the 1st level," Chu Li said. Xiao Shi frowned at him. Chu Li said, "I've already cultivated it. It's not a problem." He had the heavenly heart technique imprinted in his mind. He immediately reversed it and tried to cultivate it. Soon he was initiated. The Mahavarokana Buddha in the void of his mind did not react this time. Xiao Shi scoffed, "What's going on?" "Little tricks from the prophecy pavilion." Chu Li shook his head. "If you get the secret manual and don't know how to cultivate it, you'll definitely go astray." Xiao Shi said, "How did you know now?" Chu Li smiled. Xiao Shi scoffed, "It's best if you don't interact with them. I won't cultivate the heavenly heart technique." Chu Li raised his eyebrows and looked at her in surprise. Xiao Shi said, "If you cultivate the martial arts of the prophecy pavilion, they might sense it and cause trouble." Chu Li smiled. "That might not be the case. The heavenly heart technique is powerful. You're talented too. It might not be a disaster if you cultivate it." He already knew that the heavenly heart technique required high aptitude and strong spiritual energy. More importantly, one had to have a unique understanding of life and death. Otherwise, it would be difficult to understand the heavenly heart technique. He was someone who had died many times and had a strong spiritual energy, so it was easy for him to get started. Xiao Shi was the same, so she could cultivate it with half the effort. Once she succeeded in the heavenly heart technique, it would be easier to cultivate the peaking skill. Moreover, the price of the peaking skill was not as high as he imagined. It was far from the Deva shedding skill. Hence, it was beneficial for Xiao Shi to cultivate it. Xiao Shi frowned at him. Chu Li smiled. "Do you think I'll harm you? All right, then let's cultivate it." Xiao Shi scoffed. She started cultivating as soon as she said she would. In fact, she had been pondering the heart technique of the heavenly heart technique in her mind for a long time. It was easy to just change the order. After a while, her body emitted an ethereal aura. Chu Li smiled. Chapter 1269. This heavenly heart technique was different from ordinary martial arts. After cultivating it, it was as if one had become one with heaven and earth, making it very difficult for the disciples of the pavilion of heavenly mysteries to pry into one's fate. Thus, not only would one not be detected by the pavilion of heavenly mysteries when cultivating this heavenly heart technique, one could even avoid being detected by the pavilion of heavenly mysteries. This was a secret of the divine ordinance pavilion that non-core disciples did not know about. Chu Li had unintentionally found out about it from Zhu Hua's mind. He made Xiao Shi practice the heavenly heart technique just in case. In the future, if the prophecy pavilion found out about him and could not do anything to him, they would definitely target the people around him. Xiao Qi cultivated the regal sword scripture, so she could hide from their prying eyes, but Xiao Shi could not. More importantly, Xiao Shi's talent in cultivating the heaven heart technique was excellent. Once she started cultivating it, she would be able to cultivate the heaven-peering technique. With that, she would no longer be powerless to protect herself. She could use the heaven-peering technique to avoid danger. Furthermore, Xiao Shi might even be able to cultivate an even stronger power. Xiao Qi put away her sword and fluttered over to Chu Li. Her faint fragrance was refreshing. She sat beside Chu Li. Second eldest sister cultivates the heavenly heart technique. Chu Li nodded. The second lady is very talented. She might be successful in the future. Aren't you afraid of the secret pavilion finding out? So what if the secret pavilion finds out? Chu Li shook his head and laughed. They wouldn't dare to act presumptuously in Fairy's capital. After all, there's an enlightened master overseeing this place. Moreover, the prophecy pavilion can't censor. You seem to know the ins and outs of the destiny pavilion. Xiao Qi was smart. She looked at him and asked, "Did you fight with him again?" Chu Li nodded with a smile and told him everything that had happened. Even a wise man would make a mistake. He had never thought that he was invincible in the world, especially when it came to strategy. Xiaoqi was the best candidate, and Lu Yurong was also the best candidate. Unfortunately, their relationship was subtle, so they cannot talk about it. Xiaoqi frowned. Is Sun Mingyue that vicious? Chuli nodded and sighed. She's even more ruthless than me. In comparison, Lu Yurong seems to be soft-hearted. Xiaoqi shook her head and sighed. Chuli smiled and said nothing. Xiaoqi was very afraid of Lu Yurong and was also very sensitive about it. It was better not to say anything. Xiaoqi frowned. Then, do you want to seek revenge? Of course. Chuli nodded slowly. Let's go to the Prophecy Pavilion and see what we've gained. Be very careful. Xiaoqi sighed inwardly. She wanted to stop him, but she knew that it was useless. She sighed and said, It's not that easy to break into the Destiny Pavilion. You must be prepared to escape at any time. You must first master the Deva shedding technique. Chuli nodded. Of course, I won't act immediately. I'll cultivate for a while first. That would be great. Xiaoqi quickly nodded. Chuli smiled. He couldn't wait to head to the secret pavilion, find the soaring grass, increase his cultivation base, and deal with Sun Mingyue. However, the more critical the moment, the calmer he became, the less impetuous he became. He knew that this matter could not be rushed. The more anxious he was, the easier it would be for him to fail. The Pavilion of Heavenly Secrets was not so easy to enter, and the soaring grass was even more difficult to obtain. He needed to make thorough preparations. First of all, he had to properly cultivate the Heavenly Heart technique. The Heavenly Heart technique was of great help to him. It could rapidly increase the realm of the nature restoration manifestation. Moreover, it would also make him more sensitive and more effective in seeking good fortune and avoiding calamity. Moreover, he also wanted to cultivate the heavens peering technique. Who knows, he might gain a lot. His aptitude was the most suitable to be a disciple of the secret pavilion. He might be able to achieve something and pry into the secrets of heaven. The heavens peering technique was similar to the heaven's eye, but it was not as powerful. He had already cultivated the limbs of God and the all-seeing divine eye, as well as the all-knowing scripture. The heavens peering technique paled in comparison to them, so it should not be difficult to cultivate. More importantly, the Deva shedding technique was of utmost importance to him. Once he mastered it, no formation would be able to trap him, and those top-notch sects would be able to enter. With the omniscient mirror, he would be able to pry into countless secrets. Outside the Cloud Dream Mountain, Chuli stood on a peak and looked into the distance. It was a vast expanse of whiteness. The entire Cloud Dream Mountain was shrouded in white fog, so he could not see clearly. The omniscient mirror was useless. It was obvious that he was in a formation. Chuli knew that the secret pavilion was in the Cloud Dream Mountain. He thought for a while and suddenly appeared at the foot of the Cloud Dream Mountain. He used a strange footwork, taking 3 steps forward and 1 step back. He walked to the left and then to the right. After walking for more than 100 meters, the scene before his eyes suddenly changed. He was now halfway up the mountain, and there was an endless stretch of buildings built along the mountain. Halfway up the mountain, there were many small courtyards, exquisite and elegant. At the top of the mountain, there were dozens of palaces, each with overhanging eaves and carved beams and painted rafters. Every palace seemed to be overflowing with an ancient aura, flashing with a threatening radiance under the sunlight. Chuli took a deep breath and suddenly disappeared, appearing in a small courtyard. Sitting in a gazebo in the courtyard, Chuli frowned in silence. The omniscient mirror could observe the huge secret pavilion, but could only see these small courtyards. As for the dozens of palaces at the top of the mountain, there were 12 palaces that he could not observe. It was as if they were shrouded by an invisible force, and the omniscient mirror could not see through them. Although the secret pavilion did not have the heaven and God pill, they had a treasured weapon to suppress it, so it could prevent him from prying. This was very troublesome. It seemed that it would be very difficult to obtain the soaring grass in one go, so he had to take it step by step. He knew from Zhu Hua's mind that the soaring grass was located in a forbidden area of the secret pavilion, but he did not know where the forbidden area was. There were many forbidden areas in the secret pavilion, so he had to explore them one by one. There was no one living in the small courtyard, so no one would usually come over. He could sit here and think without worry. Moreover, he was circulating the heavenly heart technique, so he blended in with the secret pavilion, so no one would notice anything unusual. For the next few days, he stayed in this small courtyard and cultivated while observing a small courtyard outside the 3 other small courtyards. There was a young man who had just entered the pavilion of heavenly mysteries not long ago. He was handsome, talented, and advanced very quickly. However, his advancement was not enough to block Chu Li's omniscient mirror's prying, so Chu Li could see what he was thinking. Chu Li brought some dry rations with him, and sometimes he would find some food for himself, so even if he stayed in the courtyard, he would not starve. After 7 days, he had already figured out Su Hun's background, as well as his usual actions. On the morning of the 8th day, Su Hun silently passed out and was brought to his own small courtyard by Chu Li. Then, he appeared in Su Hun's small courtyard and pretended to be Su Hun. After waking up, he went to the dining hall to eat. Chu Li chose this person because he was antisocial, and he was the only new disciple. He usually did not have any companions, so he was used to being alone. Every day was boring and simple. He ate, went to the sutra library, and returned to his own small courtyard to cultivate. He was usually a man of few words and ignored others. In this way, there was almost no risk of Chu Li being exposed. Sure enough, the surrounding disciples of the secret pavilion did not speak to him at all. Occasionally, they would just nod when they met, so Chu Li could relax and fully immerse himself in the sutra library. He had not finished reading the sutra library of the Great Light Peak, so he wanted to take the opportunity to read the sutra library of the secret pavilion. The value of the scrolls in the sutra library was not limited to martial arts, but also knowledge and various anecdotes, which could come in handy at critical times. Chapter 1270. Time passed slowly. Chu Li stayed in the prophecy pavilion and was not in a hurry to act. He focused on the sutra library. He had already sent the real Su Hun to the valley where Zhu Hua was. There was a complicated formation set up in the valley. With Su Hun's ability, it was almost impossible for him to walk out of the formation. Su Hun, who had just joined the sect, did not know formations or the heavenly shedding technique. Other than the heavenly heart technique and the divine peering technique, he was no different from an ordinary person. Logically, it would be easier for him to act as an elder of the prophecy pavilion. He would have the opportunity to enter the forbidden area and find a soaring grass as soon as possible. However, the elders of the prophecy pavilion had secret skills to protect themselves. The omniscient mirror could not see everything, so he could only use the stupid method of taking one step at a time. In the evening, Chu Li came out of the sutra library and went to the dining hall. The hall was very lively. Even when people spoke softly, it was still buzzing. Chu Li ordered 2 dishes, 1 soup, and 1 bowl of rice. He sat in a corner and ate with his head lowered, fully playing the reclusive Su Hun. He was really not satisfied with the food here and could only force himself to eat. Bang! A tray landed on the table with 4 dishes and 1 bowl of soup. Chu Li looked up and saw a handsome young man of average height sitting across the table. He was smiling at him. Chu Li nodded coldly. Senior brother Tan. The prophecy pavilion's disciple, Tan Gu, was outgoing, talkative, and boastful. All the disciples of the prophecy pavilion knew Su Hun's character, so he did not mind. He touched his beardless chin and chuckled. Junior brother Su is so hard-working. It's all right, Chu Li said coldly and continued eating with his head lowered. Tangu looked at him and shook his head helplessly. This junior brother, Su, was really stubborn. If he continued like this, no one would associate with him and he would become a loner. His future would be limited. He looked at him with contempt and a trace of pity. Junior brother Su, you can't just go into the sutra library. Chu Li looked up at him. Tangu became spirited and quickly said, You've just joined the sect. The key is not to go to the sutra library, but to cultivate hard. Bury your head and cultivate the divine, peering technique to the 5th level of the heavenly heart technique. Only then can you be considered a true disciple. Chu frowned. Connecting the heaven and earth is more beneficial for cultivating the heavenly heart technique. Tengu shook his head and laughed. You're right, but that's after the 7th level. You're only at the 2nd level, so what secrets of heaven and earth? Wait until you reach the 7th level. Then it won't be too late to go to the scripture pavilion to experience the wonders of heaven and earth. I see. Chuli nodded and continued eating. This is senior brother's good intentions. Tengu snorted. Chuli raised his head and looked at him. Thank you, senior brother. Tengu waved his hand. There's no need. You've been in our Heavenly Mysteries Pavilion for a year now, but you still haven't learned the ways of the Heavenly Mysteries Pavilion? In his opinion, Su-Han was a bookworm. For the past year, he had only been to his own courtyard, the sutra depository, and the dining hall. He had never gone anywhere else. He was simply too lazy to stay any longer. He really could not stand it any longer. Chuli replied, Yes. Tengu shook his head and said, Our Heaven's Secret Pavilion has a lot of beautiful scenery. You should go and take a look, especially at the top of the mountain. Isn't the top of the mountain a forbidden area? Chuli frowned. Tengu said, There are 5 forbidden areas, but you just have to avoid them. The other places are still very beautiful and magnificent. Seeing them will make one's mind feel at ease and feel the majesty of heaven and earth. It's very beneficial for cultivating the heavenly heart technique. Chuli slowly nodded and said, I see. Senior Brother Tan, where are the 5 forbidden areas? The 5 forbidden areas are at the top of the mountain. When you go up, you'll know when you see them. Tengu waved his hand and said, Don't mess around with these 5 forbidden areas, but it's useless to tell you this. With your ability, you won't be able to enter the forbidden areas. Chuli said, What are the forbidden areas? Oh, you want to know? Tengu was surprised. You're interested in this? There must be a reason why it's a forbidden area. Chuli said, Is it because there's a senior master in isolation? There were many masters in the Heaven's Secret Pavilion, more than one could imagine. Top masters like Zhu Hua were not rare in the Heaven's Secret Pavilion. In fact, they were very common. There were also many masters who were more powerful than Zhu Hua. No wonder the Heaven's Secret Pavilion was ambitious to become one of the 8 major sections. That's not it. Tengu shook his head and said, There are some unique things in the forbidden areas that are of great importance. It cannot be known to outsiders. There are no outsiders here. Chuli said, Those who are not disciples of the Heaven's Secret Pavilion cannot enter. The Heaven's Secret Pavilion's sect protection formation was extremely exquisite. It was integrated with the environment and operated on its own. It was almost impossible for humans to break it. That was why Chuli could easily enter without any defensive measures. They were either very confident in the sect protection formation, or they were very confident in the power of the sect. They were not afraid that someone would sneak in. In short, Chuli felt that it was unexpectedly smooth, and he was completely unprepared. Tengu said, Ordinary disciples are not allowed to know. What's the point? Chuli said disapprovingly, Are we going to betray the sect? We're afraid that more people will leak it. Tengu sighed and said, But I don't know what's in these forbidden areas. If you have the guts, you can give it a try. Give it a try? Chuli frowned and thought about it. Tengu laughed and said, Junior Su, don't tell me you really want to give it a try. Chuli said, I want to know what's in the forbidden areas. Then do you know what's the punishment for entering the forbidden areas? I don't know. Face the wall. Tengu said, Being in a bitter, cold place is like the 18th level of hell. Senior Tengu, have you experienced it before? Of course I haven't. Tengu waved his hand and said, I've heard from my brothers that the pain of facing the wall doesn't sound like much, but it's the most uncomfortable. If you dare to enter the forbidden areas, you will be punished to face the wall. As long as I don't die, Chuli said. Tengu laughed and said, Junior Su, don't try to show off. Facing the wall is a living torture. It's better to die quickly. Chuli shook his head and lowered his head to continue eating. Tengu was a little regretful. If Junior Su really entered the forbidden area, then he would be a sinner. He looked at Chu Li and comforted himself. Junior Su was not stupid. He knew that he would suffer, but he still dared to enter the forbidden area. Chu Li's words were for the future. Once he entered the forbidden area, he would be able to escape if he was caught. Otherwise, if he was really suspected of having ulterior motives, he might be killed. He never dared to underestimate the divine design pavilion's strength. Even if his martial arts were top-notch, he could not force his way into the divine design pavilion. He could only use his wits to obtain the soaring grass. Tengu saw that he was cold to him, so he stood up and left. After Chu Li finished his meal, he slowly walked up the mountain as if he was taking a stroll to digest his food. The Cloud Dream Mountain was vast. The top of the mountain was not a single mountain, but 9 peaks. The peaks were about 100 meters tall and straight, as if 9 swords were inserted into the top of the mountain. The peaks were surrounded by vast palaces. Chapter 1271. This was a forbidden area. Next to the mountain was a square stone tablet with the word forbidden written on it. It was like a dancing dragon and a dancing phoenix. The sharp aura of the tablet made one want to retreat uncontrollably. Chu Li looked at the mountain peak that was as steep as a sword, then turned his head to look at the word. From this word, he could tell that the person who wrote it had a cultivation level higher than him. Otherwise, he would not have felt threatened. His instincts were warning him to leave this place and not to step onto this mountain. However, if he wanted to know which forbidden area contained the soaring grass, he could only use a stupid method. Clever methods were useless. Most of the disciples in the prophecy pavilion did not know where the soaring grass was. They could not ask about it, even if they wanted to. Moreover, those who knew about it lived in seclusion and could not come into contact with it at all. He wanted to use the omniscient mirror to pry into other people's minds and find out where the soaring grass was, but he had failed to do so in the past few days. When he thought of this, he took a deep breath and turned to leave. He went to another mountain next to him. This mountain also had the word forbidden written on it, but it was different from the one in front of the previous mountain. It was not written by the same person, and the power contained in the word was different as well. It was like a ferocious tiger coming down the mountain to swallow a person. It was even more fierce and terrifying than the forbidden word from before. This person's cultivation level was higher than the previous person's, but his personality was different. He was more murderous. Chu Li's instincts were still warning him to stay away from this mountain. He thought about it and turned to leave, continuing to the next mountain. He went to the 5 forbidden areas in succession and sensed them one by one. Among them, 3 forbidden areas gave off an extremely dangerous feeling. The other 2 mountains were not dangerous, so he gave up on the idea of exploring and thought about these 3 forbidden areas. It seemed that the soaring grass was in one of these 3 forbidden areas. He thought about it for a long time, but still could not determine which one it was. It was impossible for him to rely on the Deva shedding technique to steal the soaring grass silently. Through his senses, he knew that it was extremely dangerous to enter the forbidden areas. There must be top-notch masters guarding these 3 forbidden areas. He would definitely be discovered if he went near, so he could not rely on brute force to obtain the soaring grass. He turned to go down the mountain and returned to his courtyard. Sitting by the stone table, he carefully recalled the feeling from before. The soaring grass was the most important item of the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion, so it should be the most heavily guarded and the most dangerous. Of the 3 mountains, the most dangerous was the eastern one. As soon as he approached, he would feel a stabbing pain all over his body, as if needles were stabbing into his skin. The warning in his heart constantly forced him to retreat. If he took another step forward, he would face death. He would only feel such an eerie feeling when he ran into a heavenly god expert. There must be a top-notch expert hidden in this forbidden land, who might even be stronger than Sun Mingwei. He was definitely not a match for them. Even if he used the Deva shedding art to sneak in, he would be discovered the moment he got close. It was very likely that they would have to fight, and if he was not careful, he would be killed. He got up and paced back and forth with his hands behind his back, thinking of a feasible solution. On the evening of the second day, after having his dinner, he once again went to the top of the mountain and headed towards the most dangerous peak. Tengu had been keeping an eye on him. He saw him wandering outside the forbidden land yesterday and had been trembling in fear. He was afraid that Chuli would really trespass into the forbidden land. Once it was investigated, it would inevitably be traced back to him. If they said that he was the one who instigated Chuli, then he would not be able to explain himself. He was not far behind Chuli. When he saw that Chuli had gone to the forbidden land again and was heading towards it, he was so scared that he could not stay still any longer. He turned into a gust of wind and appeared in front of Chuli, blocking his way. Chuli pretended to be surprised. "Brother Tengu, Brother Su, what are you doing?" Tengu asked. Chuli said, "Of course, I want to enter the forbidden land to take a look." "Nonsense." Tengu went forward and pulled Chuli up. Chuli did not want to expose his identity, so he followed him down the mountain. Chuli struggled as he walked. "Brother Tengu, if you want to die, don't drag me down with you." Tengu dragged him to Chuli's courtyard in one breath. He angrily shook off his wrist and said, "Do you know what you're doing? I want to see what the forbidden land looks like." Chuli said, "You really don't know the immensity of heaven and earth." Tengu was exasperated and said, "If you want to see what the forbidden land looks like, you might as well say that you want to have a taste of facing the wall. Facing the wall is nothing." Chuli nodded and said, "Brother Tengu, don't worry, I won't drag you down." "You." Tengu's expression did not change. He said in a low voice, "Who's afraid of you dragging me down? I'm afraid that you won't be able to endure the pain of facing the wall." Chuli said, "Facing the wall once, it's worth it to see what the forbidden land looks like." "What's there to see in the forbidden land?" Tengu scoffed. "So what if you see it? Moreover, if you really enter the forbidden land and violate the pavilion's rules, don't even think about climbing up in the future. You can only be an honest disciple. It doesn't matter," Chuli said. Tengu frowned and stared at him. "Are you determined to enter the forbidden land?" "Yes." Chuli slowly nodded. Tengu scoffed. "You can't even enter the forbidden land." Chuli frowned. "Is there someone guarding it?" "Nonsense," Tengu said. "How can there be no one guarding it?" Chuli said, "Since it's a forbidden land, no one is allowed to enter. How can there be a disciple guarding it? Only the core disciples are qualified to guard it." Tengu scoffed. "Only senior brothers who are over 100 years old are qualified." Chuli nodded. "Since there are disciples who can enter the forbidden land, that's good. You better give up." Tengu frowned. Chuli said, "Brother Tengu, don't worry. I won't drag you down. I will definitely enter the forbidden land." "You." Tengu angrily stared at him. Chuli calmly looked at him. Tengu looked at his determined face and suddenly felt defeated. He knew that he could not stop him no matter what, so he turned around and left. "If you want to die, do as you wish." As long as he fulfilled his obligation to stop him, he would be able to escape in the future. Chuli once again went to the easternmost forbidden land after having his dinner in the evening. He then used the deva shedding technique and fluttered into the mountain's forbidden land. He passed through the mountain's formation and entered the mountain. The moment he appeared, he was instantly locked in place by two invisible forces. He suppressed his instinct to escape and passed through the formation to arrive in front of a thatched cottage. The omniscient mirror instantly saw the situation in the mountain. There were a total of 4 thatched cottages. In the center of the 4 cottages was a herb garden. There were dozens of strange spirit herbs planted in the garden. They were about 1 meter tall and stood upright like a sword. They were straight and looked like a jade tube. There were only 2 long and narrow leaves that looked like they were carved out of jade. They emitted a warm luster under the sunset. They did not look like spirit herbs, but more like jade sculptures. 2 gray-robed elders instantly appeared in front of him and sealed his acupuncture points. Chuli did not care that his body was frozen. The spiritual energy of a life and death scripture had already surged to the 2 spirit herbs. He determined that these were the soaring grass. Bang! His vision suddenly swayed, and he flew backward. He was the one who was sent flying and landed heavily on the ground. He only saw 2 gray-robed elders with gloomy faces. They floated in front of him with murderous intent and looked down at him. Chu Li's acupuncture points were sealed, including his mute acupuncture point. He wanted to speak, but he could not move or make a sound. Chapter 1272. Who is this young man? Of the two gray-robed elders, one had white eyebrows and a ruddy face like a baby, while the other had a yellowish and sickly face. Their gazes were like cold lightning as they scanned his body. Judging from his heart technique, he's a disciple of the pavilion. His cultivation level is still low. The yellowish elder stroked his beard and seemed to be deep in thought. The disciples nowadays are getting worse with each generation. The elder with white hair and a youthful face scoffed. All of them are getting bolder and bolder. Chu could not move his body, and his eyes could not look elsewhere. However, the omniscient mirror was staring at the two spirit herbs. The spiritual energy from the life and death scripture had already seeped into them. In just a short while, the two spirit herbs had been contaminated by the spiritual energy and showed signs of withering. However, people who were not as sensitive to spirit herbs and spiritual energy as Chu could not feel it. Chu wanted to use the life and death scripture to turn the two soaring grass into a dead state. No matter how precious they were useless once they were dead. They would probably be disposed of and thrown aside. Chu could use them to locate him and use God's limbs to steal them. Even if the two dead stalks of ascension grass went missing, no one would care, and they wouldn't attract the attention of the secret pavilion. They would silently steal these two stalks of ascension grass and then use the life and death scripture to rapidly grow the ascension grass. He could imagine getting the soaring grass and planting it. With the help of his life and death scripture, it would grow quickly and mature quickly. Then, he would refine it into a soaring pill to continuously increase his cultivation level and surpass Sun Mingwei. He could not help but smile when he thought of this. This hint of a smile was caught by the two old men. They were staring at Chu without blinking, trying to see through his thoughts. Although his acupuncture points were sealed and he could not move, his smile was hidden in his eyes. When the two elders saw it, they were furious. "Bastard, you dare to break into the forbidden area, and you can still smile." The sickly elder scoffed and glared at Chu. "Who are you?" Chu's lips twitched, but he could not move or open his mouth. The elder with white hair and a youthful face patted his back. Chu's body immediately relaxed, and he could open his mouth. He hurriedly said, "Disciple Su Hun greets Master's uncles. You're a disciple of the pavilion? This disciple has just entered the sect and is ranked last. How dare you? Don't you know that this is a forbidden area?" The white-haired elder snorted. He had the intention of exonerating him. "Yes." Chu hesitated for a moment before saying, "I know it's a forbidden area. You know it's a forbidden area, yet you still dare to come in." The white-haired, youthful-looking old man snapped. "What do you want?" Chu said, "I'm just curious about what's inside the forbidden area, so I wanted to come take a look." "Then do you know the punishment for entering the forbidden area?" The yellow-faced old man stared at him coldly and said, "Don't tell me you don't know." Chu nodded. "I know. Face the wall." "Very good. Face the wall for a year." The yellow-faced old man said in a deep voice, "Are you convinced?" "Yes," Chu replied. The white-haired old man said in a bad mood, "Brat, you are willing to face the wall for a year just to satisfy your curiosity?" Chu nodded. To be able to experience the forbidden area, it's worth it to face the wall for a year. The white-haired, youthful-looking old man laughed and shook his head. "You're an interesting brat. Is it better to say that you're smart or stupid?" Chu looked embarrassed. "Masters, junior masters, please forgive me. I had no choice." "Oh, who forced you?" The two old men's faces instantly darkened. Chu said, "If I can't see what the forbidden area looks like, my heart will itch unbearably. I'll be restless and restless. Instead of that, I'll face the wall for a year and enter the forbidden area to have a look. I'll feel more at ease while facing the wall." The white-haired, youthful-looking old man laughed. There are many people with such tempers. Some are serious while others are mild. It seems like yours is the serious one. All right, you have to be prepared. It's not easy to face the wall. It's winter now. Yes, Chuli agreed calmly. Let's go to God-Eye Peak, the yellow-faced old man said in a deep voice. The white-haired, youthful-looking old man's expression changed. He hurriedly said, Senior Brotherly, isn't that too cruel? It's his fault for barging in here. The yellow-faced old man said coldly, He's unlucky. There's nothing we can do. Sigh. The white-haired, youthful-looking old man looked at Chu Li and shook his head with a sigh. You're unlucky indeed. If you barge into other forbidden areas, the punishment won't be so severe. God-Eye Peak is the most painful. I hope you can bear it. Chu Li smiled. As long as I don't die, if you can still be like this after a year, I'll respect you as a good man. The yellow-faced old man sneered. Chu Li smiled. Good boy, you have a backbone. I like it. The white-haired, youthful-looking old man chuckled. It will be boring to stay here and guard the soaring grass for a long time. It will be fun to have such a reckless brat barge in. However, the yellow-faced old man found it troublesome. He was used to peace and did not like to be disturbed. Thus, he carried Chu Li and glided away. They arrived at a forbidden area that was not dangerous. It was God-Eye Peak. The peak of God-Eye Peak was a platform with a circumference of 10 meters. It was like a horizontal mirror. Wind and frost had polished the round boulder until it was as smooth as a mirror. It seemed unstable and made people worry that they would slip if a gust of wind blew. This is where you'll face the wall. You can only leave the peak after a year. The yellow-faced old man said coldly, If you use the Deva shedding technique to leave, you'll no longer be a disciple of the prophecy pavilion. He put Chu Li down and channeled inner energy into him, instantly unsealing Chu Li's acupuncture point. Masters Junior Li faced the wall. Where does the wall come from? Chu Li asked as he moved his limbs. He had made the right bet. If the two of them attacked and killed him, he would not be able to dodge in time. After all, he had dispersed his cultivation and only left a bit of the Heavenly Heart Technique's cultivation. Use the void as a wall. If you can understand this, you'll benefit immeasurably. The yellow-faced old man said coldly, There are strong winds at night and scorching sun during the day. It's rare to see such heat. Only when the Heavenly Heart Technique reaches the 6th level can you ignore it and no longer suffer from the cold and heat. Chu Li Fist saluted and said no more. The yellow-faced old man suddenly disappeared without a trace, leaving Chu Li alone. Chu Li looked down at his surroundings. Everything was covered by fog, and he could not see clearly. The omniscient mirror lost its effect again and was obstructed by the formation. He could only see the endless mountains and the boundless sky. The sun had set and twilight was rising. A gust of evening wind blew, bringing with it a slight chill. However, the chill seemed to penetrate his treasured clothing and into his body. It went straight to his organs and slowed his blood flow. Chu Li's expression changed. The night wind was strange. The chill it contained was so pure that he could not bear it. He suddenly recalled the situation in Yin Cave. It was similar to this. His body was now more than twice as strong. Even if he dispersed most of his inner energy, leaving only the Heavenly Heart Technique's inner energy, it would not be that uncomfortable to enter Yin Cave. However, here his body seemed to be defenseless. He vaguely felt that his days would not be easy. It was only evening. Once midnight came, there was no telling how terrifying it would be. Chapter 1273. He thought about it and was in no hurry to leave. He wanted to experience what it was like to be here. Since he was facing the wall, it was a very light punishment. He would not be killed, and even if he felt uncomfortable, it would not endanger his life. Thus, he was very relieved. The disciples of the Pavilion of Heavenly Mysteries were extremely talented. It was not easy to obtain one, and they would not easily lose one. His original plan was that he couldn't stay here forever. After a year, he would leave immediately after snatching the soaring grass. Even if the secret pavilion chased after him, it would be Su-hun. He would be able to extricate himself from this matter. Even if Su-hun knew that someone was impersonating him, he would not know who it was because he was not using his own appearance. Everything had been carefully arranged, but he also knew that everything was up to the heavens. There was a limit to one's plans, and no matter how meticulous one's plans were, there was no guarantee that everything would go as one wished. Even if he couldn't snatch the soaring grass, being able to see so many books in the pavilion of Heavenly Secret Scripture Pavilion was still a fortunate event, a great harvest. As time passed, the sky grew darker and darker. Soon night came. Standing on Divine Eye Peak, he could not see the surrounding lights. He could only see a bright moon rising, and the world was quiet. As the night deepened, so did the chill in the night wind. He had to constantly circulate the Heavenly Heart technique to expel the chill. Even so, the Heavenly Heart technique was no longer enough. His intuition did not warn him of danger, so he was not in a hurry to use other cultivation methods. He continued to use the Heavenly Heart technique to expel the chill. However, the power of the Heavenly Heart technique was far from enough. In the middle of the night, his blood chi seemed to freeze. As his blood chi froze, not only did his senses not become numb, but they became even more acute. He could clearly feel the chill cutting his body and organs like thousands of knives. After midnight, the cold air slowly receded, but the pain became more intense. His blood and chi gradually circulated, and the feeling of being bitten by ants arose. It was as if thousands of ants were biting his bones, penetrating deep into his bones. It was numb, itchy, and painful, and he couldn't help but want to cry out. As time passed, the sun rose, shining golden light on his body. This golden light seemed to be able to penetrate his skin and directly penetrate his internal organs. The cold chi quickly disappeared, and a burning sensation circulated in his internal organs. As the sun rose higher, Zhang Xian's internal organs felt like they were being roasted on a stove. They grew hotter and hotter, and the pain was unbearable. Zhang Xian faintly felt like he was being roasted. Not only were his internal organs aching, but his blood and chi were also boiling. It was as if he was being fried in a pan of oil. A day later, in the evening, he finally felt a little comfortable and took a deep breath. On this day, he felt like he had gone through a cycle of reincarnation, as if he had walked through the 18 layers of hell. One day felt like many years had passed. He felt like the blue sea had turned into mulberry fields. Suddenly, he gained a trace of comprehension of the Heavenly Heart Sutra, improving a little. Chuli raised his eyebrows. He vaguely understood why the inner wall was able to improve the Heavenly Heart technique. The pain of yin and yang could indeed improve the Heaven Heart technique, just like when he was in yin yang K back then. Unfortunately, the pain was not something ordinary people could endure. Many would probably break down and pass out right away. He was not in a hurry to leave this place. He wanted to carefully ponder over it and find out where the profoundness of the Heavenly Heart Sutra lay. Senior Brother Li, in the early morning, when the white-haired elder looked at the herb garden, he noticed 2 soaring grass that had turned yellow. His expression suddenly changed, and he cried out involuntarily. Each soaring grass was exceptionally precious. It was a matter of great importance to the number of soaring pills. A soaring pill's medicinal effect could increase one's cultivation by 10 years, saving decades of hard cultivation. How could it be taken lightly? The yellow-faced elder floated to him from another thatched cottage. When he saw the 2 soaring grass in the herb garden, he frowned and asked, "What happened?" The white-haired elder shook his head. "I've been like this since I came out. I was fine last night." The yellow-faced elder squatted down and stared closely at the soaring grass. It was withered and listless, looking like it was about to die. His heart ached at the sight of it, and he wished he could replace it with his own body. He was cold to others, but he treated the spirit grass like his own. He raised the spirit grass like his own children and could not tolerate any accidents. He doted on the spirit grass when it was sick more than when he was sick himself. He wished he was the one who got sick instead. He had been staying here to take care of the soaring grass. Every soaring grass was meticulously taken care of by him. He could identify each of them as if they were his family treasures. When he saw the state of the two soaring grass, he knew that they were doomed. There was no sign of life, and they were about to die. Bang! He punched the ground of the spirit medicine nursery and gritted his teeth. He blamed himself for being too careless and not being able to save the two soaring grass in time. If he had discovered it earlier, he might have had a chance of survival. Senior Brother Lee, don't blame yourself. Is there really no way to save them? There's no way, the yellow-faced elder said hatefully. It's all my fault. He used to check every night before going to bed. Last night, because of Chu Li, he went to the torture hall in the pavilion and explained the cause of the matter. After returning, he went straight to bed. He did not expect to encounter this. The white-haired elder frowned. What's going on? We didn't move. The soaring grass is too precious. Even the slightest change can cause a disaster. The yellow-faced elder shook his head and sighed. That's why we set it as a forbidden area, to prevent outsiders from entering, to prevent disturbing them. I didn't expect a problem to occur. Is it because of that little fella? The white-haired elder frowned. It must be because of him. The yellow-faced elder scoffed. It's very likely that the spiritual energy was disturbed when he was fighting. Besides, it's hard to explain. We can't blame him entirely. Two soaring grass. The white-haired elder said helplessly. One soaring pill is gone. Both of their expressions were terrible. They could only share the cost of one soaring pill. Losing 1.5 was a great loss. The soaring grass matured once every 10 years, and the soaring pill could only be harvested once every 10 years. There were too many monks and not enough porridge. They were supposed to receive an extra half a pill for guarding the place, but now it was gone. What should we do with these two soaring grass? The white-haired elder sighed. We can't leave them here and let others see them. Let's just break them and bury them. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. The yellow-faced elder nodded. Bury them in the spirit medicine nursery. As he spoke, he picked up the shovel beside him and quickly dug a hole. Then, he placed the two withered soaring grass into the hole and buried them. He shook his head and sighed heavily. Since it's already happened, there's no point in thinking about it. It's just half a soaring pill. Sigh, what a pity. At this moment, Chu Li was sitting on God Eye Peak. Suddenly, he sensed something and knew that the two soaring grass had been pulled out and buried in the ground. He pressed his hand on the rock and followed the ground to sense the two soaring grass. The soaring grass had the aura of the life and death scripture. Since his spiritual energy had increased greatly, the life and death scripture had also improved slightly. He could sense far away using spiritual energy, which was similar to the omniscient mirror. However, the omniscient mirror was greatly affected by formations, but the life and death scripture was different. Its sense of spiritual energy was not affected by formations. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.